all of them as well. What a move for the 48. Oh, look at this. And onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
starts right here with us at RaceSpotTV. Hope you enjoyed the 2-week break, but the second half of the season is now about to take its toll with your World GT Championship. A championship round 2 weeks ago that brought it right all together again at the top of the overall standings. Alexander Davidson doing what he needed to pull James Boomy back to just 4 championship points. You are in Champagne country at this moment to the most famous long circuit of them all, the Circuit Day 24-hour Du Mans, and it is here and it is uninterrupted here for 2 races tonight. It's the technical here today. I'm Jake Sperry. You've got TK Tom Knight along with me for the ride. And Tom, as we get ourselves into this mode, it's the quick race and the long race. You've got 30 minutes in the sprint. You've got 1 hour to go and make it work in the feature. Critically, this first race is going to be uber aggressive with just about under 4-minute laps.
Yeah, fantastic to be alongside you again, Jake. And as always, it's going to be in that sprint race. Pretty much, you go out there and give it your all because there is going to be nothing to lose for these drivers. Yes, their focus will be on that main 60-minute race in the second half, but in this first 30-minute sprint, you are going to do everything you can to get to the front.
You absolutely are, and we're going to see just how huge that is going to be. Here is where we've been over the course of this season and where we're heading to. They know that coming along in 7 days' time is a full endurance spec race at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, so that will be keeping their eyes pretty much bugged wide. But then you've got technicals still to come at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya and at Sonoma, and then the features which will find themselves in play at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve and at Daytona, November 24th, where the championship comes to an end. So you'd say that is a big challenge, but look at that championship, TK.
Yeah, it's absolutely so close on the line. And as you said earlier, 4 championship points in it at the top.
James Boomy in control then with those 4 points. Ross McFarlane not a million miles behind. Marley Joffe in 4th position with Michael Evdoka and Matthias Pirhinen then 5th and 6th. Harrison Crofer and Anders Meyer are 7th and 8th positions respectively. Arthur Thurtle for Altitude Esports by Sim Stickers is 9th. Tom Griggs has snuck his way into the top 10 of the pro standings. Over to Pro-Am, where it is again another close championship effort that we've got out there at the moment. It is a 10-point swing at the moment between Michael Gray and William Guthrie, with Eric Muxka in 3rd position. Phil Samways currently in 4th position, and Aidan Carter 5th, meaning it is a 5-way championship in Pro-Am. It is the most competitive of the championships. Tommy Vedel on the outside looking in 6th, ahead of the 2 nomads, Chris Chatterton and Håkon Ida Lindmo in 8th place, with Dickie Simnor and Tom Griffiths making up the top 10 there. Over to Am, where Daniel McCauley has himself a majestic gap over Ben Altria in the standing. 76 championship points, with Franek Sikorsky in 3rd. Brian Loynes is 4th ahead of Jesse Payne-Wilkins, with Jacques Eva then in 6th position, the South African. Ben Bennyworth for Quartermass Motorsports is 7th, with Elliot Roberts, Joe Coffin, and then Adam Hedgecock, then Mr. Hedge himself for Altitude Frame Esports, Mr. Hedge. In your Team Pro standings, WSR Esports have the control, and they are walking clear now with it a full nearly 400 points clear of Altitude Frame Esports. By Sim Stickers find themselves in 3rd. They're having a big scrap right now with Effect Simulations, with Nomad in 5th. Atomic Esports XDCW 6th, ahead of Atomic Esports, with 2 Racing Lab Esports teams 8th and 9th, and Solpec Precision Racing through David Mendonca find themselves in the top 10. For the AM teams, Full Tilt Motorsport control Full Tilt V Motorsport by a good 257 points, with Series 1 Racing in 3rd and Altitude Frame Esports Mr. Hedge in 4th. It's then the Project 91 Academy team and Full Tilt V Motorsport 2nd team in 6th, with Boosted Motorsport, Series 1 Racing, Effect Simulations Club Sport, and then Altitude Frame Esports Mr. Hedge making up your top 10 as they go. But we are in the checkered flag scenario then of qualifying, so the last laps are coming to the line, and I believe Drew Fletcher was the last car out there on circuit, and on a 354.3 does move up then into 17th position, and that then should be that, Tom, for qualifying. But a big qualifying by standards. We talk about this, gaps are going to look a little bit larger here.
Yeah, you've really got to kind of take a step back and adjust to the situation that we find ourselves at this circuit. We're not talking your traditional minute and a half sort of lap times. It is a long slog. 3 minutes, 50 seconds, and 633 thousandths of a second to be precise, set by the fastest time of Alexander Davidson. And of course, it is going to look even more spread because those individual gaps that you traditionally see on a racing circuit are even more exaggerated here.
They very much are, and I think this is also a day of who hasn't got a lap in compared to who has, because we only had 28 times in on the board, 41 drivers here today. Now, that'll be for a various amount of reasons here, Tom, some of which couldn't get a lap in, others picking up too many points over the course of the season with the license system in play, meaning that they've had to serve a qualifying ban.
I think realistically, if you're going to serve a qualifying ban, this is probably one of the places that isn't the worst place in the world to serve it. Yes, you're somewhat down on laps in terms of totality, but actually with the amount of corners, the length of the circuit, it gives you that much more opportunities, especially with that incredibly long straight, to make those passes.
Yeah, and there are so many great intricacies over the course of this. Let's take a look at your starting grid. So Alexander Davidson, who is the hot hand at the moment, has got himself on pole, almost 4 tenths clear of James Boomey in second position, with Ross McFarlane and Michael Evdoka third and fourth. WSR swarming James Boomey at the moment. Matthias Pirhinen will go from fifth, and the first of those not in a Mustang there in sixth is Anders Meyer. Adam Watson starts 7th with David Mendonca in 8th. The first of your Pro-Ams is the championship leader, Michael Gray. Goes 9th, but we'll have Aidan Carter in the Lamborghini for company there in 10th. It's then Dennis Grabowski and Arthur Thurtle, Aston Martin and Porsche for those drivers. Joe Coffin got the best in qualifying of the AM drivers. Will go from 13th with Ben Altria for company. Tommy Vettel and Phil Samways will be on row 8 as Drew Fletcher and Jesse Payne-Wilkins will round out row 9. Håkon Idar-Lindmo and Benjamin Gregory will make up the top 20, with Jacques Eva and Patrick Falconer then 21st and 22nd. Tom Griffiths and Lee Berridge are 23rd and 24th, with Louis Hesketh and Adam Hedgecock. Nathan Healy is 27th, and our good friend Paul Smith driving for Cracked Racing in 28th place. And then those who didn't set a time, Adam Tompkins, the best I-rating of them all, with AA Andy Archer there in 30th position. You then got Jack Osborne and Eric Muxka there in 32nd, Chris Chatterton and Taylor Lane. Joe Newman 35th. A lot of work for Dan McCauley, the AM category championship leader, down in 36th, with Elliot Roberts, Josh Boot, the gentleman John Roberts, Howard Hassan, and then Colin Sansom making up the 41 drivers here today. With these 2 races in mind, it is 30 minutes in terms of what they are looking at. Track temperature 25 degrees out there. I would say it is quite nice at the moment for an evening in northeast France. I would say this is the perfect time to do it here in terms of a race, and these drivers will look around at this and go, well, if it's ideal conditions for racing, let's get our best racing boots on.
Absolutely, and of course over the sprint race they're only going to manage about 6 or 7 laps in totality, so it's not going to be a lap fest like we see in some traditional circuits. The weather is absolutely stunning, certainly one that I think the spectators will be sitting there enjoying as these cars go flying by. I'm hoping the racing does the same.
Tom, Mulsanne Corner is going to be one of the best places to get a pass, but also the Mulsanne Straight will be so critical. 3 very long drafting opportunities here in this GT3 spec. The driver who enters out of Tête Rouge Corner might not necessarily be the one at the end of the opening lap who's leading the race.
Absolutely not. And even, if you head out of the first chicane, you won't necessarily be leading at the end of that lap either, because it is such a technical circuit. You mentioned the drafting that you have to get perfect, and you have to manage the expectations of the drivers around you as well. How much space do you want to leave on the outside of the circuit? How much do you want to leave as you head into that braking zone? And I wonder how many cars are going to try and pile into that first chicane all at once.
Well, everyone is going to try and do what they can to gain places on what will be, especially near the rear of the field, a bit of a mixed-up grid that they will have to try and navigate their way through. They will know how critical it will be to go and gain points, and those in the AM as well. And the Pro-Am will be looking at how high of a finish can I get. As you can see, the blue, the white, and the red, and the tricolor being put in the sky, as does every race, as you get ready for racing action here around the circuit. 24 Heures du Monde in flying formation, as they always are, and a spectacle here on iRacing. One of the coolest things that they have implemented in for many a year that has gone through. Let's get ourselves set as the pace car will dive over to the right. Single file it is behind Alexander Davidson. Green flag in the air, and we are underway for racing action here at the Circuit des 24 Heures du Monde, and immediately it's fifth where the battle is on, and Matthias Pirinen trying to hold back Anders Meyer.
Got to be careful though. First few corners, are these setting the expectations for this race? How much room do you want to leave? Are you going to be bump drafting as you come out that first sector? Everyone's got their through their clean so far, and I'm impressed by the racing.
Falconer wide, we've got one going straight across here. That's Adam Tompkins, the pro. He'll have to serve a slowdown penalty. Very tough on the opening lap. Car lost it in front of him. He has to take a massive hit as he goes by and pointing the wrong way. It's Paul Smith who couldn't get any traction up the top of the hill. Cold tyres making it difficult coming out of the Dunlop chicane. And one car going slow out of Tete Rouge is Anders Meyer.
Yeah, not the worst, well, not the best place to find yourself in an instant, especially on this opening lap. You don't have as many opportunities now to try and get back within this drafting pack as you see the straightaway becoming apparent.
Yeah, bump drafting in play from James Boomey and Alex Davidson in every race so far this season that we have watched. Those two drivers here, Tom, have been 1 and 2. There have been no ifs, ands, or buts when they have qualified it side by side as one of the Porsches. One of the Aston Martins trying to work really hard there. That's Benjamin Gregory, who watches then just in front, as that is Lee Berridge that we're focusing on for Boosted Motorsports. Louis Hesketh just behind him. In front of that, Falconer, Gregory, and Håkon Eidelindemo.
All the drivers at the moment still just giving each other room. They're waiting for those opening lap antics to kind of get out their system and make sure that they are fully indulged in the race. Matthias Sarthe managed to get up for P4, dispatching Michael for P5.
Yeah, Michael Evdoka actually had a bit of contact there, as there goes the move in front of the Boosted Motorsports car. Very good pass then that puts itself steady. Oh, heavy into the wall, out to the exit of the second chicane. There, the Michelin chicane, as it is known by sponsorship, and that is Dennis Grabowski. There, a very important name to go around. Started the race in 11th and switching into the Aston Martin with his one change for the course of this season. A dramatic start, to say the least, for him.
Yeah, it's not been the race start I think he would have hoped for. Now maybe expectations change to that main race in a few moments' time. That 1 hour will now surely be his focus and just recover what he can from the sprint.
He needs everything he can. A lovely bit of side-by-side as we see fighting going there into Mulsanne corner. You race from one roundabout to another, and now here comes the scrap heading over towards Indianapolis corner here. This left-hand bend banked as you go in through it, so you can slingshot a little bit more speed, and to particularly the hardest corner on this circuit. I've never got it right in all my years, Arnage.
Yeah, it's a really tricky corner, especially when you've got such a pack endowed racing. You have to be almost picture perfect on your brake pedal and just get the car rotated. One minor mistake is so, well, broadcast by 10 when you make those minor mistakes.
Tom Griffiths side by side trying to work his way up through the order, and he'll get the run, but he's got one of the Mr. Hedge cars trying to work its way back in, and look how busy this is going to be. You've got Adam Hedgecock there side by side, Eric Muxka watches on, Andy Archer's there, Jack Osborne, Chris Chatterton, all the pro-ams are circling around here with that one hand there on the inside of Adam Hedgecock getting his move. What a lunge down the inside of the Porsche curves. Andy Archer, absolutely ace.
Absolutely fantastic, stunning move on the first lap as well. Not one you typically see in sort of this sort of environment.
Fletcher. Sorry, you're just going to see him now, left-hand side, limping about on circuit, or just off to the left-hand side, trying to get back going again. He's had a moment, has the AM, who qualified 17, and he's just lost it on his own through the Porsche curves.
I wonder if that's a case of just being too high up in the moment and got caught up as he headed through that final sector.
Oh, that could be big, but so too is Alexander Davidson, falling back to third position then, going through the opening chicane once more. So I think he's had himself a moment through the rear quarter mont, maybe picked up a slowdown penalty, and that's given James Boomey the responsibility at the front of this field. So changes are plenty, finding themselves about. We'll take a look. This is Paul Smith on the opening lap. They're trying to catch it, gets a tap for help, and into the barriers he goes.
Yeah, the moment you lose that rear end, there's almost no recovering at those speeds. Tries to turn in towards the steer. Unfortunately, it ends up in the wall. A very similar thing, I think, from the Aston Martin here. The rear end just gets loose. Couldn't save it in time. And we're seeing this mistake time and time again.
Drew Fletcher with a massive hit going into the barriers. Now, they do have one fast repair available. Oh, Paul's going to have a second bite then as the Porsche Curves eats him up for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and that's certainly not going to help him out. He'll definitely need that fast repair before getting back going. And then look at this and how chock-a-block it was going through. Car spun on the exit, and then Grabowski takes a second hit as he goes through the rear quarter mont. This was Drew Fletcher over the curb, so he lost it for a second time, probably with a bit of damage, and Grabowski's gone around for a second time. It seems like they found a little bit of company together, and as we go back to the line, it's carnage at the Daytona chicane.
What have we seen there? 3, 4, maybe 5 cars facing completely the wrong way. The rest of the pack have done incredibly well there to avoid most of the action and keep their car in one piece.
Well, it was a major hit that went through. A number of drivers in trouble there. It's Tom Griffith. Look at that. The Ferrari's gone diving down the inside and has caught Tom out. And then everything else is just a chain reaction from that. Uberly aggressive as you go down in. Jack Osborne in the middle of that also caught a tap. He had nowhere to go, held the brakes, came straight across the middle of the circuit, had to wait for everybody to clear before he could move.
That's very aggressive racing from the Ferrari. I mean, you've gone down the inside. I don't know whether that's by choice or just completely missing your braking zone, which can be very easy to do on this circuit. But the moment the decision was made, that collision was almost locked in. And unfortunately, the drivers around just had to suffer the consequences.
Now it is Boomey who leads. Alexander Davidson now up to second. He's back through on Ross McFarlane, his teammate. Matthias Pirhinen in fourth with Adam Watson fifth. And you've also got a great Pro-Am battle on at the moment. Aiden Carter and Michael Gray are nose to tail. There is Aiden Carter working his way through into Indianapolis corner, leaving that couple of car lengths to go through so that he doesn't push Michael Gray through the middle of the corner. But Aiden Carter, former championship leader this season, wanting to find a way back. That's how you do it. Mistake at Arnage, and you're just going to pick up the pieces here over to Porsche Curves.
That's stunning racing, absolutely stunning racing. It's not the aggressive driving that you can typically see in the GT3 cars. It is just a case of wait for your opponent to make a mistake, capitalise on that mistake, and that's picture perfect. Nothing more to say.
Well, that's what was needed for Aiden Carter after he's had a couple of bad rounds over the mid part of the season. So he will take that in a heartbeat and go, this is where I want my chase to go on next, and see how many places I can gain up. Now, critically, it's not a case of you get pro points, pro-am points, and am points here, Tom. It's a case that everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet. So even if you pass a pro, that's important. Slow down for Adam Watson. Through goes Anders Meyer.
Yeah, again, fantastic moves. Mistakes are being made kind of left, right and centre. It's all about making sure that when those happen in front of you, you are there to jump on the bandwagon, so to speak, and make your pass through, because there are corners on this circuit, quite notably the chicane as you head on to the start-finish straight, that sometimes too wide isn't as possible as you might think it is.
Joe Coffin leading the AM category at the moment. He's 9th in the championship. This is a huge day for him. Currently in 12th place. Ben Ultra is his nearest challenger in class in 15th place. So for Joe Coffin right now, he's working actually with some very talented drivers around him. He's got the pro Arthur Thurtle just in front, and then he's got Tommy Vedel behind him, the Norwegian.
He's stuck in a bit of a weird situation at the moment. Of course, he's the highest running amateur that we've got on the circuit at the moment, but he's got pros and pro-ams both sat in front and behind. He's got to race his own race here. And yes, whilst you said they all kind of benefit from passing the other classes surrounding them, you've got to remember where he sits in that AM championship.
And lest we forget as well that there is also a spinning wheel for reversing the grid for race number 2 of tonight. For the 13th round of the championship, it will be lucky for some out there, and that ranges from anywhere between 15 to 30 or so. And then, of course, you've got a full reverse grid option that puts itself in place. So that will be massive in terms of if that number gets hit. Diving through the Daytona chicane here as they work really aggressively. Joe Coffin making it all known with Arthur Thurtle there behind. And this group trying to get back to Michael Gray, Aiden Carter and Adam Watson. And it's that pack mentality. How many people in your train are going to help you? Looks like there's troubles for Joe Newman at Atomic Esports. He was the Ferrari that was uber aggressive in earlier on. Oh, and he takes a second hit out of Muxka there. So Eric Muxka having no love at all for that. And he's on really high championship and bang in the background.
Yeah, that Mercedes just finding itself in the wall. I don't know whether that was by their own mistake. I'm sure we'll get a brief look at that for later on. But I think that's a little case of humble pie for the Ferrari. They've tried a very similar move, albeit they came out the better of the other cars first time around. This time around, they unfortunately ended at least somewhat minimal damage, but in the wall nonetheless.
That would have been Welshman Howard Hassan running into trouble. So that's how quickly it goes wrong out on circuit. So all these packs continuing to benefit themselves again down into Mulsanne corner. You got that orange cone that can help you out in terms of how you go through. This is Lee Berridge, Jesse Payne-Wilkins and Paddy Falconer then all working together trying to get up to Ben Gregory. So Gregory threw on Falconer over the course of this lap. So this is 18th, 19th and 20th.
Yeah, good racing on the circuit at the moment. They're all kind of just sat in behind one another. They're not eager to make moves. They've still got a lot of time left on that clock. Just under 20 minutes, just over 19 minutes, so should I say. And the battle for 18th, I think it's starting to hot up as the time will tick down.
Oh, and there's the look from Lee Berridge. He'll get one piece of contact and two. Turned over the nose of Jesse Payne-Wilkins. Berridge finds himself in trouble, and so too does someone else there in the background down at Indianapolis corner. That's Josh Boone.
Yeah, unfortunately, again, another Mercedes having almost a bit of tail happy into the barrier both times. We've seen those Mercedes AMG cars going in almost rear first. And I wonder if that's maybe spelling a bit of issues they're having in terms of setup and strategy.
Well, it could be that because they've got the long wheelbase and there's not much you can do there. Still trying to fight for grip was Jesse Payne-Wilkins there, and Lee Berridge just happened to be wrong place, wrong time with just enough for the quarter panel. Josh Boot there. Look, the rear was snapping. He was trying to keep it from going around and then just doesn't have the grip because he's trying to catch the slide mechanically to keep it rolling through the corner.
A very, very similar incident to what we saw earlier on in the race. The rear end just stepping out. Drivers are almost so uber-focused on the cars in front of them. They're trying to catch the slide at the same time, and they're just unable to. And that obviously sends them careering towards the barrier. Most often rear first, and we've seen so many rear wings fall off as a result of those entries.
Adam Watson now to the back of this group now with the two Pro-Am leaders, Michael Gray and Aiden Carter, second and first by their positions at the moment. I'll tell you someone else who I'm very excited, who's doing very well today, Davin Mendonca up in 6th place. What a great day for the American this is. We look at Adam Watson fighting through the Chapelle de la Tête Rouge corner and now into Tête Rouge. Fast right-hand, 185 kilometers an hour, pin it to the wall and then open up your straight. Look at this run between the pair.
It's going to be interesting as they head into the braking zone. Who's going to seed themselves first? Who's going to be earlier on the brakes? Because that is going to what will matter, should I say, as they head into that braking zone, because you will not want to give up this willingly.
No, there's no need to give this up willingly. You are still fighting for position, and ultimately it's a case of bingo for one Mr. Adam Watson. Gets it done on the brake, slowing down to 115 kilometers an hour before getting back on the power again on the exit of the Daytona chicane, and now heading over for the Michelin chicane, now the second of two. Brought in the mid-90s here, the chicane, because the pace that was done by the prototypes around here was so much that Mark Webber decided he liked to go upside down for one of 2 times in his career.
I was about to say, if you didn't mention it, it wouldn't have been the first time we saw Mark Webber not on all four wheels. But yeah, as you said, as those cars kind of headed into Mulsanne, they were at such incredible speeds. Half the time they were not necessarily the right way up. Half the time they couldn't brake in time for the corner. But it was the most exhilarating racing watching those races back.
It was one of the most incredible times in terms of motorsport and racing. The thrill of high-speed noise going through these wonderful areas of brilliant history that have brought themselves together. And every time you see great racing, there are chances to be had. Tommy Vettel trying to work away past the AM category leader here, Joe Coffin, today, and not quite finding it. Phil Samways as well is in the middle of that. And Phil has a very good, I would say, racing temperament. You see it from certain drivers who know how to keep themselves out of trouble and know how to find a finish, and that is what Phil Samways is.
Absolutely, and that is half the reason why he's standing where he is in that Pro-Am Championship. He's fourth at the moment. He's got Eric just ahead of him, obviously Michael and William kind of the double above those, but there is a reason that he stands for.
What a move down the inside. Ultra is going to get a nibble off of the back of Joe Coffin, and the two AM drivers now come together for the championship lead. But that was brave from Phil Samways, sneaking for the gap there that Tommy Vettel prized open.
Again, you've got to make these moves whilst they make. We're at the halfway point of the sprint already. Oh yeah, there is. Ross McFarlane is...
Yeah, Alexander Davidson side by side went into the Porsche curves there, and Tom, you're absolutely right. They got together and Ross McFarlane stolen a march on his own teammate.
Well, into team battles, who would have expected that one to come into fruition? He's now got James well and truly in his sights. 0.3 of a second, the difference between the two of them, almost nose to tail, and we get a replay.
It's a long and storied history between them. I look around and say there might have been a tiny bit of net code there between them, which would have forced the wide line by Alexander Davidson. He's someone who could hold it pretty much to that rear spoiler, pretty much side by side. You could almost trade the colours on them. They're so close when they go out there and race. And we talked about how storied they've been, how close they've been over a long period of this season. Critically keeps it within a second of Ross McFarlane. That will mean that Alexander Davidson can pin the foot to the floor on this next lap and keep himself in range on this battle in race 12 of the season.
I think that was really unfortunate for Davidson there. He was side by side, and you saw just whatever the little nudge, the little tap was, and that just caused him to drift out wide. McFarlane was not asking for a second opportunity there. He saw the gap, went for it, got the move done, and that is perfect racing.
On to the Mulsanne they go as they pass by the Stade Marie Marvant there on the right-hand side, which has held the likes of Le Mans Football Club and, of course, their rugby club as well, which has played so very well in Pro 12 in years gone by and has been one wonderful team to go through. I believe now the Pro 14 as there goes Ross McFarlane trying to cut back up and under off the exit. Here comes the drive to make it happen, and now it's perfect because the moment the WSR cars want any form of side-by-side and they tag along the straight once and they are fighting for the crown of the road twice, and 3 times they make contact, 4 times they bounce off each other here as they go through. They want to share the same space, and it's going to bring Alexander Davidson into battle. Now who's going to be the bravest as they go in towards the Michelin chicane? It will be Boomy on the inside and cut him up again. A little bit too quick to make that happen goes Ross McFarlane, and again they'll fight for the crown of the road. James Boomy might lose out. Here comes Alexander Davidson. Wowee!
Still not over though. Davidson, I think, sniffs an opportunity. He's got past Boemi up for second place. He's now got his teammate alongside him. Are we going to see a very similar sort of bumping that we see? Oh, it's almost bump drafting as they headed down the straight in towards the right-hander, in towards Mulsanne, and it's going to be a change of positions for the WSR esports drivers. Davidson takes the lead of the race.
From 1.2 seconds back over the line to leading, and they can't afford to battle like this too much because Matthias Pirhinen is only 2.5 seconds back, and that will form insurance. That's a heavy for James Boomy in this one. They are desperately bump drafting their way along the straight, trying to give themselves something. James Boomy doesn't know which way to go. Ross McFarlane thinks about it, not going to go for it. It will be Alexander Davidson who holds his ground and says, I'm going to hold this race lead, and critically has one car between between him and James Boomey, enough to take the championship lead going into round 13.
It's only a small breath of fresh air, though. They've still got a lot of time in this race, probably 2 or 3 more laps of the circuit. And of course, that long straight, which we saw pay dividends last time around, will be, I think, a talking point for Davidson here, because he's now got to figure out how not only to defend from his teammate Ross McFarlane, but to hold off the number 28 car as well, who will be using a very similar tactic to, I think, that Davidson used.
And while that happened, Ben Altria got his move through on Joe Coffin for the AM category lead. He had to go the long way around over at the Michelin chicane, which gave him the place. So a change then for AM. Ben Altria, who's second in the championship, really looking to capitalise on no qualifying from Dan McCauley. So that's going to be helpful. 1, 2 and 3 in a line. James Boomey, for the first time, dropping a bit of ground here. 0.7 of a second. That's not typical for James Boomey, who has been traditionally up at the front. And they've all picked Mustangs, and they've changed for the Pro-Am lead. They have, as now that's going to be a case of Michael Gray then dropping, oh sorry, that's a place lost, sorry, for Aidan Carter. Adam Watson now moves himself through and gains the place. So Aidan Carter directly there with Michael Gray, who has a slowdown.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for Michael Gray, and of course it does happen when you just extend track limits ever so slightly, but Carter will use this again as a little bit of relief, a little bit of fresh air. He's got Watson in front of him, can somewhat follow his lines through, and hope in fact actually the number 291 pulls him forwards as opposed to causing him headaches and drops him further back to his Pro-Am, I guess, comrades.
Yeah, so it brings him back to his category a little bit more, and that will certainly be of concern for Michael Gray. He doesn't want Arthur Turtle, who's a pro there. He doesn't want Phil Samways to jump up and gain points on him either. So there will be that in the back of the mind of how do I manage this in such a way. They change as well for 6th and 7th as David Mendonca is going to lose out then, and that will be Anders Myra in the BMW through on the Porsche. Don't see too many Porsches out there. We talk about balance of performance. It's not going to change over the course of the season, but they are allowing that one car change over the course of the season, and that's why we see some of the Aston Martins in play, because one of the reasons why that one car change is in play is because they've had a new car in the middle of the season.
Yeah, and I was going to mention this actually. We saw a lot of drivers switch into the Aston Martin, the GT3 that came into fruition in the series, and of course in the simulator as a whole. And it's proving a bit of a fan favourite, I think it's fair to say.
It is. You've certainly got quite a few drivers who have gone to it. Not the masses that have moved away from what seems like Mustang spec at the front of this field overall. That seems to be the way that it's gone out there, but it's very nice to see a Porsche and a BMW making good progress here in this race. 6th and 7th respectively at this current moment in time. Down to 8 minutes 25 on the clock as they try and figure out will there be any last second moments where passes can happen. They've gone through the first 10 minutes, they've navigated the second 10. You know, this is where you've made your bed, and you might have to either A, lie in it, or B, thrash about the covers to try and get a pass.
I think we're going to see a lot of thrashing about the covers here, especially as we watch the battle for 21st place, because drivers will know that time is decreasing. They've got nothing to lose if they're in these sort of spots. Might as well send a cheeky move down the inside. I thought the Mustang was going to half look for it as we head through the right-hander, but maybe he's just getting in his opponent's mirrors, making sure they're aware he's there, but also maybe acting as a bit of a mental play, trying to distract those in front.
Yeah, that's Dan McCauley, the amateur category championship leader, fighting Chris Chatterton and Andy Archer. This is for 21st, and so they will know how critical gaining places is. 13 for Daniel McCauley at what is currently, as he crossed the line, 35 seconds off the race lead. So he's had to work really hard on this. He's found a group he can go with. The Nomad car directly in front of him on the brakes into Indianapolis corner, and I can't help but check the fact that there's been a bit of cloud cover over the last 5 minutes or so that will bring the temperatures of the tyres down, give those drivers more chance to attack.
Also, we're watching on board with Dan as well. The lead in effectively the AM Championship has changed hands. Joe Coffin managed to make a pass past Ben up for 13th place. Lucky for some, as you said, and certainly will hope to try and hold on to it with 6 minutes and 50 seconds to go.
Well, that will be 2 laps left in terms of racing as your leaders work their progress. Ben Altria, who has been super consistent this season, has been knocking on the door of getting victories. He's just run into one Dan McCauley, it seems, every single round that hasn't been giving him what he wants. And now he realises, right, great chance. Dan's at the back. Joe Coffin steps up to the plate. So it seems like perennially a bridesmaid and someone's looking for that bouquet.
Absolutely, and he's had not necessarily the best race to remember, but he's wanted to try and pick up crucial points where he's had the ability to, and I think that's what I'm sort of alluding to. And you know, Joe's kind of stepped in there and somewhat metaphorically put him in a coffin.
Well, yeah, it's been a case of will you be able to get yourself out of the situation that you're in at the moment. He seems a little bit buried alive in terms of where he's trying to get out of this scenario. So keep an eye on that and keep an eye as well on who is making progress, because I look at James Boomey here and I think this might be very clever at the front of this field as we focus on one of your BMWs. Ross McFarlane knows he is behind Alexander Davidson in the championship. He knows that he's got a role to play. That is rear gunner. And he knows his job is simple. How difficult can I make this driver here in the number 28's life? How difficult can it be?
I wonder if we're starting to see that here, because Ross has dropped off the back to what we saw, you know, 1 or 2 laps ago, where they were pretty much nose to tail through the majority of the course. You see Ross has dropped about 6 tenths back. Yes, they gain in the straight line, and James is sort of eyeing up a move here to the right-hand side, but there's still that increased gap up to Davidson in the lead.
Yeah, and that was very close between them. There was side by side, couldn't get the clearance needed, and now suddenly it's 8 tenths of a second here. If it goes over a second, Alexander Davidson is going to have license to run as fast as he can, but you know that second chicane isn't the best place to do it. It's Mulsanne Corner as you look to try and make that run. So as they race along one of the most famous roads out there, the D338 here in France, then they work in towards Mulsanne Corner in its entirety. They now run themselves by the golf course and still no pass. It's going to be found. A tough day at the office. They now move onto the D140 and try and work their way to Indianapolis. Here comes James Boomey.
Let's see if he's going to be able to get something in towards Indianapolis. Of course, the left-hander, he's put himself on the outside of the corner, which could be interesting. McFarlane, I don't think has the answer in a straight line speed, but I wonder if he's going to try to on the brakes. No, very calm and responded through that little right-hand kink in towards the left-hander. And I wonder if Ross is maybe starting to kick up something. Saying about kicking up something, Davidson just into the gravel ever so slightly.
Yeah, he's using all of his road tax available. 9 tenths of a second, just can't break away. And suddenly James Boomey now will have license on that last lap to try and chase down Matthias Pirhanen, by the way, under pressure as well for 4th place. Michael Evdoka and Anders Meyer might have something to say on the last lap too.
I think there's going to be a lot of last lap overtakes here. Drivers are, again, acutely aware of the time. They know they will be on that last lap. It is do or die at this moment. And keep an eye on the time, though. Davidson's broken that second and continues to run.
And he needed to there through the Porsche curves to have the confidence through the corners. Remember, he was through almost 4 tenths quicker in qualifying. It was critical to have that speed. And so at 1.2, this is suddenly getting the danger light flashing here. Under 3 minutes to go. The last lap will start. This is what's happened to Dan McCauley and championship leader in the barriers. And I think he had someone go with him. No, just avoided.
I think that was by the narrowest of margins there that they didn't find themselves in the barrier on the left-hand side. Swerved to avoid the moment they saw smoke. And sometimes all you can do is pray that you don't end up in a barrier when a car spins of their own accord like that.
Well, this is where drivers find what they are made of here. Ross McFarlane is harrying here James Boomey at 1.2, 1.3. Very, very tough. Evdoka has lost to Anders Meyer with a slowdown penalty, and that's going to bring that battle in, unless we forget that AM is still open between Coffin and Altria out there too. A lot to decide through Tete Rouge corner, and now the most critical run along this backstretch that you will see all day long, as this gap at 1.2 seconds. Boomey needs help, but he's not going to get any.
No, not in the slightest, and McFarlane's done well. He's stuck right to the rear of Boomy in front of him. I don't think he'll make it in towards that first chicane, but the exit will be absolutely critical if he wants to try and get the move done here.
Oh, he has to defend, does James here into turn one. This is what he doesn't want to do. Compromise his line in any way, shape or form and give up the place. He knows, oh, he's run wide, and that's going to open up the door here for Ross McFarlane. He did not want to make any mistakes out there, and happenstance and circumstance have said, now you got a duel on the straight.
Not a place, again, you want to try and battle. They bump again. Oh, my goodness. We're going to see this, I think, 2 or 3 times, as neither one of these drivers wants to give up an inch of space on this race circuit. But McFarlane, I think, was setting that up corner and corner and corner before it even came into fruition.
And James Boomy inching over on the circuit there, and Ross McFarlane giving him the space to take that away. Knew that he didn't want to get himself involved. Every time they run over an instant point threshold of 7 instant points, they start losing championship points out there. That is critical for the way they want this to go, because they know every tiny bump that they have on the straight, that's 0. That's fine. You can have a tiny bump. It's the big bumps that are going to hurt. On the brakes, then they go into Mulsanne corner and switch it up on the exit. This will be a drive to Indianapolis corner, and critically here for Ross McFarlane, he might just have the move he's been waiting all race to try and unlock. He'll have to go the long way around. Oh, they go together again here along the straight. Brilliant stuff. This is true racing. They're not giving anything out there. There's going to be a WSR altitude frame car and an altitude frame WSR car by the end of this. Now they hit the brakes, heading to Indianapolis corner. Inside line is going to favour James Boomy, and he just about crowds out the move then from Ross McFarlane. He'll try and come back, heading in towards Arnage, but it's all covered up at the moment, and they've still got the Porsche curves to go. Ben Altria in a massive scrap with Joe Coffin and Tommy Vettel back there as well. Keep an eye on the AM category that's going on too, because Coffin, I think, just got his place as Altria has just pinned and commanded it. But James Boomy just about has this stake, and you talk about critical moments in championships. Holding on to second here might be a difference maker in a championship so tight through the first half of this season, to say what more can you do heading in towards this second half. Race 12 of this championship has been all about who's got the nerve, who's able to hold themselves steady. There's Alexander Davidson. Keep an eye out for the forward chicane. This is a massive defense from James Boomy. Davidson will come to the line and will be taking this race through the rear corner. Ross McFarlane goes wide, and that will sort out second. Brilliant stuff for James Boomy. Ultimate damage limitation. Alexander Davidson just too dandy in front.
I think that was a do-or-die moment for McFarlane. He was going to throw everything at it to try and secure second. Unfortunately, didn't go awry for him, and he will finish still on the podium places. But what a fantastic drive from Davidson there to secure the win. And we're seeing Aiden Carter as well coming home in the lead of the Pro-Am Championship, or the category.
Yeah, brilliant stuff for Aiden Carter, and critically for Ben Altria. His fantastic battle with Joe Coffin on the last lap. He is going to be able to stave it off then and take the AM category honours then here in round number 12, and that will give him a huge boon as they head through. Great racing towards the end. There's the Rhino racing car of Jacques Eva having a very close race then to the end. I think just ahead of Dennis Grabowski down there in 22nd. Tough day at the office for him, but it's going to be 33 cars that will effectively end on the leading lap, except for one in the pits, that being AA Andy Archer.
It's a really tough circuit to master, an unfortunate way to end the race out, but alas, I think they'll be happy that they've managed to bring the car home in some form of the word, let's put it that way, to get the car home, to secure the points. At the end of the day, that is what it's all about.
And for Adam Tompkins, who had himself turned around in the opening stages of the race, trying to work himself through, he's down in 31st position, and I think he'll realise that was not the day that he wanted. He can be lightning fast in anything he puts his mind to, can Adam, but he has been mired at the back of race after race after race and has found himself in penalty purgatory for the majority of this season. So he really needs to effectively find his get out of jail free card. Let's spin this reverse grid wheel, see what we've got for round 13. Is it going to be small? Is it going to be large? And the answer looks like it is going to be a small reverse for race number 2. 17, that will be where we get a very interesting story to tell. Alexander Davidson then wins by 2.5 over James Boomey. Ross McFarlane will finish 3rd ahead of Matthias Pirhinen in 4th. Michael Evdoka is 5th ahead of Anders Meyer. 7th belonging to David Mendonca for Solpec, and Adam Watson there in 8th. Your Pro-Am winner, Aidan Carter, will finish in 9th as Michael Gray would be 2.5 seconds back of him in 10th. Phil Samways is 11th with Arthur Thurtle in 12th. Ben Ultra and Joe Coffin are going to be 13th and 14th with Tommy Vedel and Håkon Eidelinmo, the 2 Norwegians, 15th and 16th. And your pole sitter for round 13, Benjamin Gregory, gets on the right side and will have an AM on pole. Jesse Payne Wilkins is the one who gets himself the unfortunate place of missing the bubble, as Patrick Faulkner and Chris Chatterton would round out your top 20. Fastest lap, by the way, was Alexander Davidson over on lap 7, as Jacques Eva will be 21st ahead of Dennis Grabowski, who will have work to do in this race 13 of the season. Elliot Roberts and Tom Griffiths 23rd and 24th, with the gentleman John Roberts 25th, and Daniel McCauley will be seeing that championship lead shrink again. 26th he'll have to start, with Adam Hedgecock and Colin Sanson behind him. Lee Berridge and Taylor Lane would make up the top 30, as Adam Tompkins would be 31st ahead of Andy Archer and Paul Smith, and officially Paul Smith will finish ahead of Andy Archer because Andy would not get to the checkered flag in time, so he'd be classified a lap down. Louis Hesketh then would be 2 laps down, and now you're starting to hit the retirees. Nathan Healy, Josh Boop, Jack Osborne, Joe Newman, so really tough day for the Atomic drivers out there. Eric Muxka caught out in it too, Howard Hassan, and then finally Drew Fletcher unable to find something for Series 1 racing. But again, this is going to be the nature of this season, Tom. This is a championship, especially in pro, of how many notches can you get on your belt compared to someone else. When you've got 2 drivers as sensational as Davidson and Boomey at the front, it's who makes the least mistakes that wins.
Absolutely, and I think a circuit like this where we are today absolutely exonerates that point almost 10-15-fold, because it is such a long circuit. You don't get the opportunities to recover yourself. There are not the same corners to memorize lap after lap, and you've got to get them picture perfect every time.
And when you're in Pro-Am or you're in Am, it's so critical to get yourself inside that top 15 if you can. It automatically gives you a good place for the second race of the night that comes along. And so you're looking around at Ben Altria, you're looking around at Joe Coffin, at Ben Gregory. They've got such a head start going into this race 13.
Yeah, and you've got to feel sorry for Jesse Payne Watkins, because if you look at from their position, you've got, what, 3 of the AM cars, which would have been within 5 places of you. You take that reverse grid, you spin it on its head, and now suddenly they're 15 places up the road, and you've got an almighty challenge on your hands.
You absolutely do, and that challenge will be coming along on the other side of this. Stay with us here for your World GT Championship running, because race 13 is going to be lucky for someone, and that someone will be lucky on the other side of this.
past all of them as well. What a move for the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from the number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to racing action here from the Circuit Day 24-hour Du Mans. We are now getting set for race 13 of the season, and critically, at just over the halfway stage, it is now about opportunity. Whose opportunity is going to stand them on song compared to various other drivers over the course of this season? Every point now is going to matter more. Every single piece of contact will be scrutinized to the nth degree. It's Jake Sperry and Tom Knight bringing you all of the coverage. And Tom, I think what needs to be remembered about this series is the legacy that it comes to it. A lot of the drivers who first came to this series made their grounds and made themselves known in the touring car scene here on iRacing. Things like TCR, things like the old Kia Optima. And so there is that bit of edge that comes between certain drivers. So when you see, you know, two drivers make contact 5 times in a row on the Mulsanne in the same lap, it's not a case of you should penalise 30 seconds for someone. It's a case of let them race.
Absolutely, and that is such part and parcel of that touring car sort of discipline, let's put it that way. The cars are designed to battle it out, both mentally and physically as well. They are designed to scrape together. They want to essentially race as close as possible to the point where they probably want to be in each other's cockpits. But, you know, don't penalise it, let them race. Rubbing is racing, as the old phrase goes.
Yeah, and we have seen such amazing racing, but we are now going to extend the timer out. There is the requirement of a pit stop because of the fuel requirements of the car. And so that brings a completely different challenge to this race, especially with the reverse grid. It forces the quick drivers to try and make places over the course of the race. It forces the slow drivers to work out, okay, how am I going to hold on to this position? And ultimately, it's an opportunity for those drivers who don't often get the chance at the front to show what they're all about.
Absolutely. The drivers, of course, finished down 16th, 15th, 17th. I've done that in completely the wrong order, but obviously flipped to the top of the grid. They now lead the charge at the start. Obviously, we saw a little bit of carnage, a little bit of chaos when we got going for the sprint race. I wouldn't be surprised if that is, again, slightly elevated when we go for the main 60-minute race. But again, let's keep an eye on the track. Let's see how those drivers deal with the pressure of having 40-plus cars behind them.
And they know that with all of those cars looking to try and make their way forward, there will be casualties. There naturally are in a race like this where they are more aggressive. They're looking to gain those places quickly. They don't quite know how the drivers in and around them are going to race. And often this is where you find a big casualty quick. But because of it being an hour long, you only need to make it to about 15 minutes or so, TK. before, if it goes wrong, you can make a pit stop early and try and play the reverse strategy card. Get yourself some clean air and see what you can do on pure pace.
Yeah, those pit stops, I think, are going to be crucial for those drivers that are involved in those first lap instants. We saw a numerous number of rear wings, let's put it that way, getting lost into the crowd and the gravel where they've just almost gone reverse entry into some of the corners. The rear tyres didn't want to stick. They just inevitably found the barrier at the worst possible time. But now they've got that opportunity to go again. And Jake, I think we've got some more interesting news that could pay horror to the drivers.
It is bucketing it down here in Le Mans. This is the big scenario that they didn't want to be dealing with, and just looking at where they've gone through a massive band of Category 2 rain, of green band rain, and importantly, they're in a little bit of blue category rain, and then it's expected to stop. So as far as the schedule goes, as far as the weather forecast goes, they're in the worst of it. It should get easier.
Should being a very, I think, subjective opinion for most of that, because of course any rain here at the Circuit de Dumont is going to be difficult. You've got such a long straight down the Mulsanne straight in towards the chicanes, in towards Mulsanne turn itself, and picking those braking zones that you've hammered into yourself after half an hour of racing, they're going to be completely out the window.
Certainly will do. Very wet conditions out there. It's declared moderately wet on this circuit, which as far as they go, there's lightly wet, very lightly wet, moderately wet, fully wet, and absolutely bucketing it down. You might as well get your boat out.
Yeah, I've personally got my boat in the commentary box. I don't know if you want to borrow it. It's got an umbrella in it, so at least we can watch it from trackside.
Oh, perfect. Brolly boat. Take that. But at the moment, they'll be certainly seeing that it's a completely different skill. So you would have practiced the track all week, or for 2 weeks, trying to work out what it's going to do. And then the moment that you see it's rain, did you practice for rain?
Yeah, it's going to be that hair on the back of your neck moment when you're loading into the session. You go, have I done practice in the wet? How confident am I when the rain does indeed tip it down like we're seeing here? Because the puddles will be plenty, the braking zones will be much different. I do fear, though, the racing will be as aggressive as it was in the dry.
And more importantly, Mulsanne Straight will be one of the most interesting places, because you can't go too wide anymore, because it just puddles to the outside of the circuit. With all the tractors that run over the course of the track, all the puddles go to the outside, and then by the time you get into any sort of apex, you can't hit it because, well, where does all the water go? To the outside, exactly where the apex is.
Yeah, it's going to be that muscle memory in effect. You've got to try and counteract anything you've learned over your 2 weeks practice, unless you specifically have done 2 weeks practice in the rain. And if so, who hurt you to do 2 weeks practice around this circuit in the pouring wet? But it's going to be that element that everything you know from the dry conditions, as you said, apex is outside of the running. It's all out the window.
Wow, so this is going to be a wonderful case of challenge out there at this stage. I would look around and say, what can you do to hold yourself steady in conditions like these? And because they've only got 10 minutes worth of practice, 5 of which will be used getting into the server, getting yourself set up. What do I need to do for that setup? Imagine going from a completely dry race going, right, you've got effectively 1 lap to work out how wet the conditions are and what's the right setup for me.
I feel bad for anyone that went to the loo in this break and has used up about 3 of those minutes, not aware of the weather conditions that are about to approach them, because they're going to hop in even more blind than the drivers that have had the moment's practice, and that is going to be at least 1 car in the wall in practice.
Yeah, and there will be more, and that was a hefty hit into the barriers. And I tell you what, if this rain is going to stop as well at some point, the most dangerous place on circuit is not going to be out on track. It's going to be everyone trying to make that 1 pit stop and slowing it down for pit lane.
Yeah, pit road here is not an easy one at the best of times. It will be a difficult one to slam on the anchors, get that braking point absolutely right. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a fair number of drivers taking it very easy into pit lane, just making sure that they get the car stopped without sending that rear end flying. Because again, they've done it in the dry. It will happen tenfold in the wet.
And so now this becomes a case of hold on to your, well, umbrellas at this point with how wet it is out there at this moment. And there's a reason why racing around here has its own quirks and personality. And iRacing's weather system throws up a treat as we get ourselves set. Practice coming to an end as we now look and get ourselves ready for racing action here for round 13 of your World GT Championship. And just as the session will tick over, it is of course going to be pole position for one Aston Martin over at the front of the field, and that will be the AM driver Benjamin Gregory who will have that control. Håkon Ida Lindmo and Tommy Vedel will be second and third, the two Norwegians there in Pro-Am, alongside with Joe Coffin in fourth and Ben Ultra, your winner of AM last time out, in fifth. Arthur Thurtle will go from sixth position with the two of three Pro-Ams, or five Pro-Ams that made the split. Phil Samways, Michael Gray, and then Aidan Carter, championship leader, goes from 8th. Adam Watson starts 10th with Davin Mendonca and Anders Meyer on row number 6. Row 7, and look at this here. You got 3 in a row on the left-hand side. Evdoka, McFarlane, Davidson. 14th is Pihanen. 16th is James Boomey. And 18th, wrong side, for Jesse Payne-Wilkins for Full Tilt Motorsport. 19th is Patrick Falconer with Chris Chatterton rounding out the top 20. Jacques Eva and Dennis Grabowski will have row 11 as Elliot Roberts and Tom Griffiths are 23rd and 24th. John Roberts there for Boosted Motorsports will go for 25th, along with your AM category championship leader Daniel McCauley in 26th. Adam Hedgecock and Colin Sansom have row 14. Lee Berridge and Adam Tompkins round out 30. Down to just 37 here for this, with Paul Smith and Andy Archer. Louis Hesketh and Jack Osborne then find themselves on row 17 with Eric Muxka, Howard Hassan and Drew Fletcher down at the back. So they've got themselves set, they've got themselves ready, but they have to work their way now through the haze. And they know now that as they go, the rain has in fact stopped out there on track, and it is not expected to come back. So they've got a wet circuit that they're trying to get dry, but look at that, it's pea soup out there, Tom. It's like trying to get more water into an already soaked sponge.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen, is it? You're not going to be able to get too much water off this circuit without running over most of the puddles. And even, we've got a spin on the formation lap. One of the Mercedes finding the dark patches far too early.
It's Michael Gray, it's the Pro-Am Championship leader, and that could cause so many troubles for drivers as he's waiting to get going, because they might get a penalty here that they're not too inclined to because they've overtaken on the pace lap. So Michael Gray already finds himself in the wall, and so if you can't keep it in a straight line on the pace lap, well, hold on and help yourself, because this is going to be a very tough race once you get yourself up to full racing speed.
It certainly is indeed. We're heading towards pit road. The safety car and the pace car will start to peel in, but you can see the rain lights flashing. They are going to be of very minimal use when this spray starts to kick up from all these high-powered GT cars, because it is going to be even more of a pea super in the next few moments.
Well, as the pace car will get itself ready, a small glint of light over the stand, and it was just good enough weather for the tricolor to be flown here at the beginning of this race. Get yourself set and situated. In comes the BMW iRacing pace car. Ben Gregory gets the green flag, and now we'll have the chance to run off away, and immediately there's a spinner down into the wall there. Is that Ben Ultria? No, it's Arthur Thurtle who's gone into the wall.
It's going to happen, and it has happened even before they get towards the timing beam. It's the most easy mistakes to make. The wet weather conditions already finding some early victims.
Look at the lights having to be shown here as they try and work it through. In the early stage, we've got cars off. Ross McFarlane is around then. He was third today in race number 1 of today, and now he finds himself now skittering about the gravel, and he's going to be joined, I think, by Archer out there. Yes, that is Andy Archer.
There's cars scattered everywhere on the opening few corners of this circuit at the moment. No one, by the look of it, can seem to keep it on the black stuff.
No one can, but at the moment, it's going to be good news for Ben Gregory, who leads this one. Ben Altria gets the pass on Tommy Vettel, who runs wide at Tetra Rouge. Joe Coffin fourth. Phil Samways is up into fifth. And then the pros are trying to work their way forward. Boomy and Davidson are together on track. And now the long run that is needed towards that first chicane. And this is where the tyres go get, I would say, cold. And they've got to be so concerned if anything goes wrong. Race control also giving the directive, any black flags that are picked up from spinning will be cleared, so proceed as you go. Brilliant scrapping down on the brakes as they go through. Phil Samways and David Mendonca, the big one at the moment. Myra and Ed Docker having a scrap too.
Some great racing, even with the rain continuing to cause issues. We may have seen that tricolor come across the start-finish line, but it's still incredibly soaking wet over this incredibly long 13-kilometre circuit. And of course, with such few passes that our drivers will make, I'd be surprised if it dries up at all over this hour.
And they scrap for the race lead as well. Benjamin Gregory just about holding himself steady. A great start from Ben Ultra here at the moment. You might as well call him British Airways at the moment. He's flying all the way through the puddles to try and get the launch.
Somehow he's making it work when the rain is causing issues. You can see the lights in the background of all the cars just making their way down towards the Michelin chicane. Who's going to be brave on the brakes? Because at the moment, those tyres will be frozen. We're not down to the chicane, my apologies. We're heading down to Mulsanne itself.
And Altria gets the clearance down on the brakes. Vettel sits in third place and the pass is done. Alexander Davidson side by side with Michael Evdoka, his own teammate here, trying to get the clearance on Adam Watson and James Boomy. Boomy now pulls to the inside of Watson and says, look, I've got to get going, and I've got to get going like yesterday. And so he will need to try and pick up the run to gain that place. You want to be on the inside, and look at Adam Watson at the moment. He's getting freight trained.
He is, and I don't quite know what you do if you're in that situation at the moment. He's got Boomy just managed to get past him. I think there's 3 or 4 more pro category cars in front of James, and he's got to try and figure out a way past them. But it is a long race. This is what you got to remember is when the Mustangs goes very deep into that corner. Did they manage to keep it on the circuit? I think they just did.
That was Alexander Davidson with a late move around the outside of Mendonca, and then I think that's someone else trying to get by Mendonca and not having any luck, and that was Adam Watson sailing at Arnage.
Very easy just to get the braking points wrong here, and Watson has paid the price. Ultimately, McFarlane's managed to get one pass back as Paul Smith falls down not 1 but 2 positions as Hedgecock gets past him, but they're still too wide. Drivers are not fearing the weather conditions, I think, as much as they saw in practice.
Yeah, that's James Boomy then getting his move done on Evdoka, Adam Watson and Matthias Pirhanen going at it through the Porsche curves, and now it's just a case of can you hold yourself steady and can you give yourself the line. The outside line's going to work. Contact. Watson then going sliding with Michael Evdoka through now towards Corvette corner. Adam Watson holds himself in. Louis Hesketh in trouble.
Yeah, repairs required. Meatball flag being shown to the number 68 car. But can we just say what an impressive save that was from Adam. Managed to get the car started. He's turned into the slide. And actually, we saw less drivers manage to save their slides as we got an Aston Martin to the inside. Oh, I think he was a bit of a day late and $1 short there on the McLaren.
Yeah, that would have been Grabowski trying to get by his own teammate. Oh, massive slide off the exit. Adam Watson with a bucket full of torque is going to find nowhere to put it down. Grabowski will go through, and so too Dan McCauley, up 11 on the opening lap.
Absolutely stunning drive. Maybe a driver that is taken to this circuit like a fish to water in loves when the rain buckets down.
Oh, we got 3 wide behind over the top of the crest as they go through. It's Evdoka, Pirhanen and Boomy is going to be clear of that. Phil Samways moving through as they all figure out where to go. Alexander Davidson now past Tommy Vettel up to 5th place. He's having a wonderful start to this race. He's working through. And as well, keep in mind, they're not going as quick as they would do in the dry. So this is a great chance to save fuel. There's going to be troubles. Joe Coffin's in the wall.
Oh, really unfortunate for Coffin. Had a fantastic starting position, but of course, if you end up in the wall, that is your race not necessarily done. You've got that opportunity, as we mentioned earlier, to go for a pit stop, but he's going to have to at least look out for a bit of a slog here.
Well, the issue there is Tommy Vettel was slow on the exit of Tetra Rouge, and James Boomy just had nowhere to go and tried to figure out a way to go by. So Boomy gets inconvenienced by it. He's now stuck with Pirhinen, and by comparison, Alexander Davidson is eyeing up Anders Myra and Aiden Carter. Carter's gone straight on at the chicane there, and he's almost going to get run over going through. That's Ben Gregory, who's had to avoid the chicane in its entirety. Here's a look at the replay. Look, 1, 2, 3, where do I go?
Such an unfortunate one to happen, especially as you head into Tetra Rouge. 3 wide doesn't necessarily work out. The outsides of both of the left and the right, of course, still will be incredibly sodden. And I think that was just unfortunate. Both of the cars on the outside wanted their key position. Oh, how that BMW hasn't spun. That is incredible.
3 wide in the wet in towards the Michelin chicane. What world are we in at the moment? They are racing so aggro out there at the moment. Aiden Carter holding himself steady in 4th place. You're leading Pro-Am, and critically so at this moment in time. And everybody is thinking about, well, how many places can I gain in these conditions? And so it's about trading places, moving up, gaining a bit more. On the brakes they go into Mulsanne corner, well held by Anders Myra at the moment, and Anders here will have some work to do. It's 3 seconds to Ben Altria, who leads.
Yeah, they've got to try and pick up the pace, but actually they're losing time up to the AM category that leads this race. You can see the time ticking closer, ever and ever closer towards the 3 seconds. We see a side-by-side moment as they run down towards, I believe, down towards Indianapolis. Who's going to be brave on the brakes, Jake?
Well, it looks like Alexander Davidson's got the clearance, so Alexander Davidson I put my money on, and yeah, he's got that one sorted. Anders Myra has to fall back into rank and file for it, but Davidson runs a little deep through the corner, trying to take the karting line through there. You got to be careful that you don't grab the gravel untowards over through that section, but just about managing a way through, and now needing that clearance required to go and say, right, this is what I've got, and this is what everyone else around me is going to be playing with. It looks like for the moment your top 17 are all relatively close together, and then it starts fanning out behind that as far as it goes. But some wonderful racing here, but we do need to talk about some drivers who are looking to try and make some statements here at the moment. I look at Chris Chatterton. He's had a really good start, up 7.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic drive at the moment. Sits in 14th overall, of course, standing within that Pro-Am category, and he is 7th in the championship, so he's got something to prove, and he's got an opportunity to score some good points.
With Phil Samways just in front of him, that's certainly going to help. Boomy under pressure from Adam Watson. Now here's a look from Michael Gray. Oh, he grabbed the grass on his start, and so going through Tetra Rouge, well, they say grab the grass, it might be okay in the dry. Grab the grass in the wet, you know, you basically just go 07 and straight on.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to put any form of power down when you're on the grass and you're on the wet patches of this circuit. It just doesn't happen, and that's Arthur Thurtle just clipping or being clipped in the rear, and the car, again, almost unrecoverable on a formation lap.
And as that's happened, one of the Boosted cars going straight on, spinning around and losing out even further. Dramatic for Lee Berridge.
That's unfortunate. How's he managed? I don't know how the cars in front haven't been clipped, but again, key precision driving, avoid the incidents that occur, and this is what it's mainly about when you get these hour-long races. You've just got to be cautious of everything that's happening around you, minimise mistakes, minimise accidents. I say that with the cars behind.
Tommy Vettel, known sometimes as Tommy Fast, is gone Tommy Quicksand at this stage. Dennis Grabowski, who'd done so well to gain those places, he was up 12 going onto that lap, now also found himself spun about by that process. What a tough start to this race we have had. Any moment that you get involved, you got to try and keep yourself out of drama, and this has been an almightily tough start to this race.
It's such a race of mental endurance. We have another, I think that was one of the Mercedes, just having a bit of an issue running wide on the right-hand side of your screens. Now manages to join back in the pack. Yeah, not been the race for him either.
No, I'm looking around. That's Elliot Roberts even, who's had that half spin. Tom Griffiths was joining the scene, and there is the Mr. Hedgecar. Wrong way. Adam Hedgecock, well, he's pretty much in a really tough place there on the Tetraru chicane. On the brakes, here comes the lunge down the inside. Tommy Vettel just about holding himself together then against Dan McCauley. Jacques Eva having a really good race on the back of this one as well. He's trying to get the Rhino car to move on up through the field. The South African proving that he's got a lot of worth here in this to try and chase down. What a run you need now, heading over through the middle of the road over towards that second chicane of Michelin.
You've got to be so committed to go to the left or go to the right, because you know the weather's going to be treacherous when you head into that braking zone. As we see the cars just getting back into the braking area, they move to the outside to open up that corner. But for the majority of the straight, they're in the middle. They don't dare go to the outside where the weather conditions and the standing water essentially is.
It's not just the fact, it's the weather conditions, it's that the light's fading here in the twilight as they go. In sim time, it's just about to tick over 7 o'clock as here's some side-by-side Evdoka and Gregory going at it, and Evdoka gets a wonderful launch on the brakes. David Mendonca looks for a way to go through, and he can't find it either. The light's very much on at the moment, and go up to the front because Alexander Davidson has just hunted down Ben Altria, and it's only taken him 2 laps to claw those 3 seconds for the race lead. Side by side it will be behind, and it's almost side by side for that race lead as well. So anywhere you look, you're going to see great battling. Gregory, I think, is going to have to give this one up. David Mendonca gets his pass.
It was starting to get sort of that mental element of the race as Davidson manages to take the lead of the race away from Ben. Up at the lead, the pro category once again retaking the lead of the race. The number 55 car, and now has an opportunity to kind of run away whilst they've got that blocker in place.
Well, he's got 9 places and 12 seconds over James Boomey. That's a disaster for James. He knows he's just got to gain those places any way he can, and it's a tough day at the office. James Boomey now eyeing up Ben Gregory here, who's now finding himself through the pro gauntlet by the looks of things, and this will be heading to the Porsche curves, and neither of them in a Porsche, so they won't get an advantage through here. Thank you very much. There's the pass. James Boomey gets his place just in front of him. Adam Watson having a very good run of things at the moment. Mendonca in front of him, then Evdoka, then Matthias Pirhinen.
Yeah, I was saying before that lead changed hands, that we're getting to that sort of element of the race.
Oh, Altria's ahead again.
Oh.
So Alexander Davidson here must have had a moment. He ran wide. Oh, we got a car off, and that is Ben Altria, who goes straight across the Ford chicane and has to get himself back on the power once more. He'll serve the slowdown. Anders Meyer now up to second.
Wow, that was an impressive slide to say the least. I think we cut to him right as he was pretty much sideways into the corner, drifting with everything he had. He's done well to keep it out the barrier, but also recovering going in a straight line. And that shows the sort of driver that Ben is starting to become in this race, that he has those moments of adversity, but he's able to actually come back from them really rather well.
He's done well to get himself back into racing mind. He knows how tough this race is going to be. Gets himself caught out. A stray puddle here, a stray puddle there. And you're always going to find out that this circuit is going to be difficult out there. A moderately wet track in conditions where you're going to have no sun to help you get rid of this water on circuit. And I would say at the end of this lap here, is the opportunity for many to dive in, get their free pit stop out of the way, or their mandatory pit stop out of the way, get themselves on a set that works for them, fast repair, and back into this race.
Absolutely, and we were saying kind of that mental element is going to come into play. You'll see it's about 30 seconds slower here at the moment, a lap, than it was in dry conditions, but in the cockpits that's going to feel like 2 or 3 minutes longer, because you are so on edge, lap after lap, corner after corner. You cannot afford to make a mistake when these conditions are like this, because you can see the standing water on the left-hand side, typically where you'd want to try and go for an overtake, as Watson, I think, barely avoids the standing water himself.
But sweeps around the outside of Michael Evdoka and takes that move to go up into P6. Well, Matthias Pirhinen for 5th. Daniel McCauley is on an absolute tear as well, and he has a tag with Ben Gregory, and Benjamin fall back behind me. Daniel McCauley, 15 to the good.
Well, the Scotsman managing to really hold his ground there. A little bit of a love tap, let's put it that way. But Ben just has to stand his ground, or does he? Looks immediately to be in Daniel's mirrors as he runs down towards the corner. Are we going to see a late diver? Wouldn't be surprised. The Aston Martin does favour a bit of a cheeky look down the inside. Not on this occasion, but just reminding the Mustang that he is well and truly there, and I think just lurking for the time being.
Oh, you can see the little slide there coming off the chicane for Dan McCauley. He got bitten there in the dry. Now, in the wet, he'll have even more concerns for it. If Docker under pressure again with Adam Watson, he's trying to get his place back. They're catching Matthias Pirhinen, and if Docker's better on the brakes, but he's on the wrong side of the road, and so they're going to fight for the exit. Remember, that line, which they have down on the track right now, that rubbered-in racing line, that's going to be really slippy, so you have to take an alternative line into some of these corners to find the pace.
Yeah, it's that almost double jeopardy element where the line you want to take is going to be somewhat inundated with water from the heavy rain we saw in practice, but is equally the line you want to take. The rubber is going to be like ice in many of these situations, so you've got to find the lesser of two evils, or find the balance between the two in many aspects.
Matthias Pirhinen holds his ground, and Adam Watson also gets his pass now fully confirmed with that move. Heading over to Arnage on this fourth lap of the race, looking over to the inside. It's not quite there. James Boomey also through on this lap on David Mendonca. A change then that puts him up into 8th place now, and looking to try and run through the various number of drivers he's got to make passes on to go and make this race his and his alone on, again, another night of damage limitation for him. And also recovering through the field, keep an eye on Ross McFarlane. He was backwards on the opening lap. He's now up to 15th, and he's eyeing up here Jacques Eva for position here. So if he can get the run to go through here, look at that, that's 14th place. He's technically plus at the moment. What great recovery skills needed here from 3rd overall.
I think there's got to be some opportunity here for Ross McFarlane to lock in. He's found, I don't want to say comfort in the wet, but certainly more comfort than those around him, and is really starting to put in the times to match it. He's made passes left, right and centre, and to come from such adversity in the opening lap to find yourself where you are, that's surely got to be a boost of confidence for the driver.
And while he's overtaking drivers as well here, Tom, as we take a little look here at Paul Smith, car just goes one way, goes the other, a full 360 for Paul. He's really struggling out there at the moment in time. I would look around at this and say Ross McFarlane is running times while he's overtaking people similar to the leaders.
It's something that I'm actually failing to comprehend up here, because my mind is saying there's no way he should be able to overtake drivers like he's doing and also keep times with the front runners, because those two things, from my world of racing and knowledge, do not add up together. It takes you time to overtake drivers, but he's almost going past them without a care in his mind. They are not of concern to him.
He's very much going with the flow, and off the road slightly went Aidan Carter at Tetra Rouge corner behind Ben Altria in the race for 3rd position. So there are numbers of fantastic battles out there, and also you've got to remember, this is one of the toughest areas out there when you go racing, as Adam Watson fights hard here on the Mulsanne. So on this Mulsanne straight, you got all the road markings that are there. That's not racing paint. That's so slippy when you start hitting the white line markings.
Any biker knows, especially when it rains, how slippery paint can be on a road surface, and it's going to be doubled down here with such high downforce cars, tyres running slightly probably less tread than your typical road car, and at speeds high in excess of your typical road car. They are going to be dangerous.
And the danger here is that Matthias Pirhinen has just seen Adam Watson fly on through and has gained a place, and now it's going to be about Ed Docker, it's going to be about James Boomey, it's going to be about those drivers now trying to get themselves back into line and formation and make those moves. Pirhinen pushing along the straight, Adam Watson, and lifting out about a good 50 metres early into the corner, L&C, or Laco as it's sometimes known, lift and coast.
Yeah, you've got to just make sure that you have an ample opportunity. And again, a few minor snaps on the rear end. We saw this earlier in the dry, more so actually than we're seeing in the wet. And I wonder if that's because drivers, A, have got a slightly higher rear wing, because obviously they'll want as low as possible for that Mulsanne straight. And their setup will be adapted for the wet weather conditions. But I wonder if it's just because they're being that extra bit cautious with the throttle. So they're not stamping on it and hoping the car responds. They are waiting to see how the car responds to any minor throttle input. One of the Mustangs really tries it around the outside. I think that's Ross McFarlane trying it.
That's a Docker making a big move around the outside. He did go off the circuit to make that pass across the white line and said, you know what, I'm just going to commit to this anyway. I will note that I don't know how to spell because it's Lyco Lift & Co. It's not Lyco. But Lyco at the moment being needed by certain drivers. James Boomey also gets by Matthias Pirhinen, and now Ed Docker dealing with 3 of the altitude frame cars out there. Now tries to make his move on Adam Watson, but Watson's having none of it. I'll wait for my Sherlock to come into play. Into the wall to try and get this pass. Look at the crossover that comes into play. Watson holds his ground. James Boomey gets shuffled out.
I think he'll be saying that move was simply elementary as he manages to hold on to 5th place. That is beautiful.
Just simply beautiful racing there, and that's what happens when you get the elbows out. You've got to find yourself in a place where no one else is going to fall back and say, I'm going to lose this one. You've got to stay on song. You've got to make sure you give a little bit more room, a little bit more in the braking zone. If Docker gets close again, nibbles the back of Adam Watson, and now looking to try and change his mind through each and every single corner. 38.5 minutes to go here at the Circuit Day 24-Hour du Mans, and it is absolutely brilliant racing here for 5th, for 6th, for 7th, for 8th at this moment, and maybe 9th if David Mendonca can jump on the rear.
At the moment, Watson is celebrating. He's holding on, and he's really found peace and love with the wet weather conditions, because nobody seems to be able to make a move past him. The moment someone sends a move down the inside, he's looking for that switchback almost immediately, and that was almost a minor mistake from Docker in the Mustang. Just couldn't quite get the car rotated, I think, as much as they wanted to.
No, I don't think he could, and so if he's not getting the rotation properly through the corners, he's going to really lose out, because any time you make a mistake in the rain compared to the dry, as James Boomey wrestles with it, heading in towards this Dunlop chicane, and Docker just about commands the apex, covers it all off. Any mistake, including stamping the throttle and unable to get any traction through the tyres, is going to be amplified by a factor of 5.
It absolutely is, and I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe see some new tyres at the start, because of course these ones will slowly be wearing down. Of course the cars get lighter as that fuel burns off, so it's going to be a bit of a double effect. They'll lose the weight that they had at the start, which will help them get traction in some corners, but in the same time it will help them be quicker on the straights, which will double down the factor when they come to those heavy braking zones.
And you saw that from Docker, the half slide, the traction control setting in and saying, look, this is how I need to stamp myself down. But this is where James Boomey just commands the crown of the road, says this is the place where it is the highest on this straight. I'm going to give what I can. If Docker says, no, I want this. I'm going to fight you every stage of the way. We'll see who's better on the brakes going down into this first chicane. This is going to be close between them. James Boomey gets himself the launch, but if you knit one, you can pearl one, and Ed Docker's going to come straight back at him along this next section.
That up and under has been the favourite of a number of drivers here this afternoon, because it has been so powerful, especially in these GT cars, because you can go side-by-side racing, you can break that a little bit earlier, wait for someone to go deep and switch back to perfection. The move is certainly not finished yet for Boomey.
And we've got a car that has just made a pit stop. Phil Samways then the first to really dabble and delve, as here comes the chance again, and now James Boomey, round he goes, and now he's going to need to get up to pace immediately. He was fighting hard for it. They go 2 into 1, and you just feel for James that he is getting stuck in places he doesn't want to. He's now with Dan McCauley.
I do wonder how much of that was a bit of a move of desperation as we watch Aidan Carter trying to put a move on Ben Altria up in front. This would be for podium places as well.
Well, it is for podium places at the moment, and it's your leading Pro-Am and and your leading Am going at it, and it's the Am who's having to defend at the moment. So a very interesting battle. 4 seconds ahead of Adam Watson. This is going on, and Night Rain Racing is probably the most dramatic, I would say, scenario that you can give any sort of driver. Take I can't see in front of me in dry conditions and say, you know, what more can I do? There's no light to help you. You're just going to get a bucket of spray.
Absolutely, and it's a double down effect, isn't it? You want to try and hope that your headlights are pointing in the right direction, and suddenly, slap bang, you've got this massive car rear bumper in front of you that's blocking any good view. We've got a replay here of what happened to Boemi in towards the chicane. It looks like he just tries to come across the car, and unfortunately, with that rain on the right-hand side, the rear end just steps out, and unfortunately, an unrecoverable spin.
It's a case for James of he's trying to command the middle of the road. He's trying to take the line that suits him. Michael's not going to move off of it, and those Mustangs are heavy. They are built like bricks, and so ultimately what happens when you try and run through a brick wall, you're going to find out that the mortar's very strong, and around goes James Boomey. That's just tough out there for him. 4 seconds, the lead gap at the front between Alexander Davidson and Anders Meyer in second place. We watch as Aiden Carter has his day and has got through on Ben Altria for position. So Ben now down to 4th place, and that Lamborghini, I think the only Lamborghini in the field, proving its worth here in the rain.
Yeah, something about those Lamborghinis seem to be working when the rain does start to fall and fall heavy, because whatever it is, I think maybe because they're so low to the ground, they're just holding onto the circuit quite well. The downforce package that it has integrated within the system, it is running absolutely spectacularly compared to, you know, the traditionally more boxy, the Beamers, the Mustangs that we've seen.
Yeah, would you say then, Tom, that centre of gravity is such a huge factor to wet weather racing?
Oh, almost certainly. You know, the closer to the ground, the centre of the ground, more importantly, that you are, the less likely that car wants to step out on you. And when it does step out on you, the more easy to recover it is. We saw just moments ago when Boemi went spinning around, that Mustang is incredibly, well, not off centre of balance, but compared to the Lamborghini, has a completely different centre of gravity. And that probably added into how far they went off the circuit.
Here's another look. James Boomey on the brake, so he holds it, and now they fight for the end. That is 6 of one and half a dozen the other. I think if anything can be described as a racing incident, it's that.
It's unfortunate at the end of the day. Both drivers wanted to hold their line. You're not going to go on for curbs like you would in dry racing, so it's fair for the driver on the inside to hold that line. Boemi wanted potentially to try and squeeze into the inside. It wasn't going to happen, and as you said, it's a racing incident if ever I've seen one.
Well, it's not quite a lonely nomad there in 12th position, because Ross McFarlane has found his way to Chris Chatterton, and on the straight they will have a game of can I take Dennis Grabowski's toe and go and work with it. Ross McFarlane comfortably gets through. Oh, what a tough day for Dennis Grabowski. He's got no headlights.
Well, he's got no headlights, he's got no front bumper either, so I wonder if he's found a wall slightly earlier on in the lap. He's just trying to drag that Aston Martin back to pit road to get it repaired and try and get back out on circuit before, I don't know, the dark gets even darker.
Well, for Dennis Grabowski, the one issue you find around this circuit, it's okay if you've got cars around you. If you don't, this is one of the circuits where about 90% of this track is not lit in any way, shape or form by floodlight.
Yeah, and we've seen many cars in real life where the headlights have failed and they've been somewhat forced to pull over because they quite literally cannot see the public roads. It's not like there's cat's eyes on the roads that we see here in the UK. There is literally nothing to tell you what is the centre of the road when you've got no trailing lights.
No, exactly, and it's a case of you can't just pull over if you're Dennis Grabowski, turn on the racing line and say, right, continue on, there's nothing wrong with me as I go. This is the toughest challenge you've got. If anything, in the very dying light, he's got a tiny trail of spray that's going to help him. There's the side-by-side of Docker again going at it here with Matthias Pirhanen and looking for the drive off of the exit. Pirhanen keeps to his quarter, so he commands the middle of the road back again, and because you're on the top of the middle of the road of the crown, you get the best contact patch out there, so it becomes a case of the middle of the road is the quickest line.
Yeah, it's a real almost arch effect, isn't it? You've got the dips on the left and the right, so both drivers are battling over that centre line. It's almost like they're on a runway as they come together, almost with the car on the left spinning out. Oh, there we go.
Michael F. Docker had been chancing his arm and chancing his arm and chancing his arm, and at some point he was going to strike out.
It was so unfortunate. They were both battling for the centre line as if it was a runway, went too far off to the left, hit that standing water, and we know what a result that's going to happen.
Yeah, the spin won't cost in terms of position, but it will in terms of time. So Michael Evdoka will see Matthias Pirhinen off into the distance. David Mendonca a bit behind. Another look, see, yeah, there's the overspeed. If you're trying to command the middle of the road, the issue about trying to be road commander out there, Tom, is at the halfway stage of this race, if someone's not going to move, they're going to hold their line. You can't move them.
No, especially not in these sort of cars. In maybe open wheels, you could probably get away with it, because otherwise you're going to wheel hook and one of you will probably end up upside down. But in GT cars, especially those that are built like boxes, you are not going to be able to bully another car off the circuit when it's raining.
No, you're certainly not. Into the Porsche curves goes the Was Cooking Racing car of Elliot Roberts with Ben Gregory then. This is 14th and 15th, and some critical AM Championship points here to be scored, as Elliot has been doing a great job. Just in front is the AM of Jacques Eva in what is 14th place. So they've got all these drivers together, and they are proving that they can find themselves some good racing amongst each other. Now, in comes Matthias Pirhinen after all that to make his pit stop. So that's the first call of order from those nearer the front. Pirhinen jumps in to make his stop.
Yeah, I think that's pretty unsurprising. Dead slap in the middle of the race. They know they've got 29 and some change to go in the race overall, so they're getting a fresh set on, they're getting some fuel in the car, and they'll go back out for pretty much the same stint they had in the opening.
Another set of Pirellis will be needed then, and Pirelli wets they will surely have to be out there. The track, though, has started to dry up a bit. We're now at lightly wet conditions. If it gets to very lightly wet conditions out there here, Tom, I would argue that is enough standing water cleared to go onto a slick tyre. So the longer this goes, the more likely someone may gamble for a slick.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see that probably when the rain or the wet weather does ease off even more considerably. But again, the issue, very similar to what we had with Instance in the sprint earlier on, is that it's not a typical racetrack that you go over 20, 40 times or so in a single race. This is only going to go to about a 14-lap race over an entire hour, so there's not many opportunities for the cars to go by each pass to clear up some water, and it won't develop as quickly as a traditional circuit. In the same development, though, they will still have to have rain conditions. They'll have to hold on, because there'll be sections of the circuit that'll be so much more wet than the others.
And you'd argue from where the rain has come from, the wettest part of the circuit is going to be Tetra Rouge Corner, which will be the last one to dry. Great grappling here between Howard Hassan and Colin Sansom, two drivers who are normally at the back. Sansom just lifting out of the throttle then, going into the first corner, saying, you know what, Howard, you are quicker than me. I will let you go on, and I will try and continue my race and try and preserve myself towards the end.
I think it's smart racing. He knows what he's trying to hold on for. He knows there's a considerable amount of time left, and you can see the driver behind now in front pushing. Maybe he's hoping they'll make a mistake later on into the race and effectively give the position back for free.
Well, we will have to see about that. There will be drivers looking to push, and I'll tell you who is pushing at the moment. Adam Watson. He's now found the back of Ben Altria, and he's trying to ruin the parade of Aidan Carter in front of that to make sure that there's no Pro-Am or Am on this podium.
They want to try and make it an all-green number up at the top, as you can look on the graphic on the left-hand side of the screen. It's going to be an interesting one to see how they make their way through, because at the moment, 55 and 20 dominate the top of the leaderboard.
They do. 6 seconds clear of the likes of Anders Meyer is Alexander Davidson. There's the lonely figure out in front. There's Anders Meyer giving chase. It's then another 7 seconds back for Aidan Carter, who is in 3rd place. So Aidan is doing a really good job of this right now with Altria and Watson in hot pursuit. But this is all about what the championship needs. You can only drive what's in front of you, and Alexander Davidson just cut his way through and said, you know what, wet weather is my domain, and I'm going to prove that I am the best all-round driver this season.
Yeah, he's not looking backwards in any way, shape or form. He knows the distance in the championship up to James is only 4 points. I think almost certainly he will be able to get that and possibly more to make his way through if it stays like this. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's still over 25 minutes of this race with changeable conditions coming. But at the moment, Davidson will be focused on one thing, and that will be the victory in about 25 minutes' time.
Well, he'll also be focusing on what his lap times have been doing as he crosses the line for a 4:15.4. They are running about 6 seconds quicker than what they were doing on lap 2 of this race. So they are flying fast, and actually we are going to take takers down into the lane. So that's going to be Adam Watson trying to beat the traffic, and he hits his marks with 25 minutes to go. He is down on the lane, and Dennis Grabowski, I think, is due to follow.
Yeah, unsurprising. Get a fast repair on that car if he's still got one, of course, and hopefully get some headlights going forward. Albeit the rain and the sunlight probably will be coming on to us in the next few moments.
Well, I won't see sunlight. It'll be moonlight, if anything, because it is dark as dark can be out there at the moment here in France. We call it Champagne region. Well, you don't get too much champagne out here in the October months as they work themselves down through here this Virage de Chapelle, through the Tetra Rouge chicane, and now over through the Pays de la Loire signage and into Tetra Rouge corner. David Mendonca seeing in front Michael Evdoka as Jesse Payne-Wilkins also in for a stop.
Yeah, lots of stops coming now. 24 minutes left on the clock. They know they've got one essentially final sprint to the end, hoping that the weather eases. I do wonder how many are hoping out or staying out in hopes that the track improves dramatically, where dry tyres are potentially that option, like we said earlier, Jake.
Well, that is definitely a choice, but it's not just about staying out longer to make it work. It's also having the time to use it.
Absolutely, and it's going to be each team and each driver will probably have a go, don't go sort of moment or lap in this race where they have to make that decision. Do they go on a set of dries and gain the benefit from them, or do they just kind of bite the bullet, go onto another set of wet tyres and essentially go, you know what, there isn't enough time to make benefit from these dries?
Working down on the Mulsanne and trying to figure out how to get this past. David Mendonca is trying to figure out where to go. They will see on the rear that they do have a rain light, which is right in between their braking lights out there. That is the indication of when the spray is there, that is where the car is. They will see that light more and more as they go, and know that the more they see that light on the rear flashing away, and you'll see it there, there it goes, flash, 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 flash. They will know the more you see it, the less wet it is.
Absolutely that. Of course, they'll be kind of judging it as they're racing. Of course, if that light ends up in your cockpit, you know you've gone too close to the car in front.
Yeah, and if you do that, then obviously you're going to be seeing the stewards after the race, and that will not be a good idea. Good drive off the exit there from Michael Evdoka. That brings now into play David Mendonca, who I think is going to struggle here in a straight line. I think this is one of the issues that you find out there with picking the Porsche, is that it just can't quite get the straight line speed.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's underrated by any means, but especially when you compare it to some of the cars that are around it, the very big, boxy, almost NASCAR-style builds of the Mustangs, which punch through the air with an almighty bit of force. The Porsche just seems like it's second nature.
Yeah, so for that Porsche, it can stay behind, but it can't extend and go by. And the issue they're going to run into is they've got James Boomey behind them, who wants to get by both of them. So there is that. And remember, James Boomey's come together once already with Michael Evdoka. He's coming back for afters, as in comes Paul Smith.
Yeah, I think we're going to see round 2 of this scrap coming in the next few moments. If neither one of them pits, of course, that is still on the cards and wouldn't be unexpected at this point in the race.
No, it wouldn't, because we are nearing that crossover point where most drivers start thinking about coming into the pits, deciding to make that stop. Obviously, though, if they have been able to save their fuel effectively, I'm not sure there is much of a look. Hi, Paul! As he works himself coming out of the pits, he just wants to make sure that he's not coming out in any traffic. In comes Anders Meyer and Alexander Davidson. So good bit of reprieve here for Paul Smith. The leaders are all pitting.
Yeah, there's a bit of a grimace there from Paul Smith, actually, as he was coming out of pit lane. I think it was just the car, maybe a bit of a snap. He wasn't happy with either his own driving or how the car's performing. I'll leave that up to the viewers at home to make your determinations, but lots of pit stops coming now with just over 20 minutes on the clock.
Tom, everyone except David Mendonca.
Well, maybe Mendonca's either had a massive big brain play or they've missed the window.
I think everyone's come in because they're limited on the fuel. Remember, it's a 4-minute lap around here at the moment. When you're needing fuel, you got to try and hope that you got 4 minutes extra fuel compared to everyone else around you. Already leaving the pit is Alexander Davidson.
Yeah, and of course they do have, I believe, according to the rules and regulations, they have their fuel boxes or their fuel, I forgot the word for them, the fuel tanks, there we go, limited in size compared to what they, in theory, maximally can hold.
They do, and so for all of these cars, you've got to be set for what they've got. Now, traditionally, in terms of how they go, it's 75% of the fuel tank, so that's traditionally 45 minutes that you can manage. But remember, you are spending a lot of time at full throttle around this track, so that sometimes can be, you know, you're looking around thinking it's 45 minutes. At the moment, it looks like it's 40 minutes.
Yeah, you will, of course, naturally save a little bit of fuel in whatever the conditions you, as you said earlier, Lyco, lift and coast into corners, so you save a little bit of fuel microly, but there's not many opportunities on this circuit, not like a traditional circuit where you come up against the same corner where you can lift and coast into. You will see opportunities mainly to Mulsanne, that sort of sector or element of the circuit, but the majority of it, as you say, the Mulsanne straight is going to be full throttle, full pin.
Oh, Flower of Scotland, it's Ross McFarlane versus Dan McCauley.
Wow, this can be an interesting battle. I wonder which one of them is going to come out on top and maybe try and claim some sort of moral victory for Scotland.
Well, claim some heritage points out there, the McFarlanes and the McCauleys out there at this moment in time. And the way they've pitted here, James Boomey has come out directly behind Michael Evdoka.
Well, I think this battle's going to be a spicy one, Jake. If there's any repeat of what we saw a few laps ago, where we saw neither one of them willing to give space, they headed in towards that chicane. Boomey, I think, could be the one in trouble.
Well, I look now, and it's the same corner that they're coming up to, and will James Boomey want to make a statement against Evdoka? Thinks about it left, then right, tries to throw him the Schumacher dummy over to the outside to make it work, and he'll try the same line again around the outside. This time he doesn't put his nose in. The door has to be left slightly ajar there by Michael Evdoka. He gets the drive off of the exit. It will bring Matthias Pierden into play, who, remember, was a lot earlier coming to his pit stop, and then there's Adam Watson as well, who wants to make himself known. This is an important phase of the race for these drivers who want to work out, right, this is where I want to be, because Ben Ultra is there in front and Aiden Carter's there as well. Effectively, this is the podium scrap.
Evdoka had a bit of a tail wag as they came out of that chicane as well. I think trying to put the power down too early to hold Boomey behind him, but he was successful at the time. A lot of gravel, I think, around there on the circuit. Someone run off white?
Well, a lot of drivers would have run off wide, and so you will see that gravel just deposit itself back onto circuit, and, you know, you're not going to get time to get the orange marshals out there with their broomstick to try and shuffle it back. You're just going to have to manage with that for a few laps as they go through. The big drive to keep in mind through that pit stop was Adam Watson, who, remember, pitted in a little bit earlier. He lost out in the stop to Pierden, to Boomey, to Evdoka. That didn't work for him, so he's lost all that ground to Ben Ultra and Aiden Carter. That, you know, what was looking like a surefire podium for Adam Watson is now looking like, can I even get a top 5?
I wonder how much benefit he had if he intentionally somewhat underfueled in that opening stint. He would have been quicker, and that could explain the almost meteoric rise that he had in the opening stint. But now the roles reversed. His car's going to be heavier compared to everyone else around him, and you can see the time. I think he's dropping off the back of Matthias.
And just getting word that your Pro-Am Championship leader, Michael Gray, is out of the race. So this is a huge free kick for Aiden Carter here. He could be waltzing up the championship standings here with Gray out here around this Le Mans circuit. Mendonca in, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Chris Chatterton also dive into the pits. He's in 2.
Been told as well, there's a couple of drivers that did try the slicks right at the start of the session. Not quite sure why they tried it. Andy Archer, I believe, was the one that attempted it when it was still very heavy rain. To quote him, it wasn't the one.
No, I think it's one of those decisions where you go, yeah, no, not quite the right decision there on a moderately wet track where it has been throwing it down for so long. You need the tyre temperature, and if you lose it immediately, it's trouble. Now along the main stretch, here comes the looks around because Boomy's got Matthias Piernan, and remember, Piernan's had an extra lap here or two to get those tyres up to temperature so he can go out there and be aggressive. They've got Ben Ultra just in front. What a gauntlet for Ben Ultra. Docker, Boomy, Piernan, hold them all back.
He knows what he's got to do here. He is going to play the ultimate defensive masterclass because, of course, they are all racing for points. It's not separated necessarily into category by class. So Ben Ultra has got a job to do, and he's going to do this with confidence, and he has to do it with confidence.
Oh, he just about holds on at Tete Rouge corner, and in all of that, David Mendonca's in fourth. He's beaten all of them in the stop with an overcut.
Wow, I did not expect that one, and now he'll be somewhat lighter on fuel compared to everybody else to the sprint, so let's see how that pays off for him.
Well, it's all about now. Ben Ultra, first chicane, watch out. Here comes one, here comes two, here comes Red, here comes Boomy to the outside and makes the pass. Matthias Piernan tries to sneak his way through. It's a shuffle through the middle of the corner because of the spotter call that would have been there, and Piernan's going to get the drive off the exit. A puddle for Ben Ultra. 3 places gone in 1 chicane.
That's going to be heartbreaking for Ben Ultra here. He had the move. He potentially had the pace and the skill to try and hold them behind him. Maybe he just decided it wasn't worth it. He was going to lose too much time to everybody else around him and kind of went, you know what, you guys race.
Look out! James Boomy and Michael M. Docker are trading paint again on the brakes to the Michelin chicane. Thank you very much. M. Docker's got nothing for it. Through goes James Boomy. He gets what he wants. Mendonca going for the podium in front of them. Aiden Carter now side by side. It's Lambo versus Porsche. On the run they go towards Mulsanne corner. And in the words of good old JR, business has just picked up.
It certainly has. We've got 13 minutes and a half left on the clock in this race. Carter's not giving up, though. I thought he's going to try for it as they head into Mulsanne corner. Mendonca, though, I think just has the better line, does so around the outside. The Porsche is somehow coming to its good now.
Yeah, that Porsche is waking up and everything is coming up Millhouse for it at this moment in time. I am looking around and seeing who's managing what in these conditions, and there are some areas of the track where they're not getting those rooster tails and some areas where they are. So some elements of the track are dry, some are not. Here comes Aiden Carter. He's not giving this one up. He'll fight back against David Mendonca. Round the outside, heading to Indianapolis corner. Great stuff. And Mendonca chucks it in deep and tries to scare him off the apex. No chance of that.
Carter is making this Lamborghini work, and work hard he is. The Porsche's been like a sleeping dormant beast all afternoon, finally starting to dwindle itself away, but not necessarily fully. Its eyes are half open, but Carter at the moment has got that Lamborghini firing on all cylinders as he swoops around the outside. Stunning racing, and the Porsche still trying to hold on. The beast is waking.
And also, Michael M. Docker has not given up here with James Boomy. Boomy's on the wrong side of the road for the Porsche curves, but it's going to be a scrap about who's got what. And remember, the grip on the outside is going to be better than being stuck on that inside line. Wonderful stuff on the trade-off there. And James Boomy holds his ground against Michael M. Docker. Wonderful stuff between them, but Michael's got to go and dig in deep here because he knows he's doing a job not just for him, but for everything else. Great launch out of Corvette corner. Through the Maison Blanche chicane they go, and Aiden Carter has to leave the door open for David Mendonca as they fight to Ford.
Still going wheel to wheel, side by side as they head in towards the final few corners. I think at the moment the Porsche tries to itch itself ahead, but the Lambo's not giving up here. Aiden Carter is putting on an absolute show here, fighting with drivers above his class, above his category, but he's showing they are well and truly in his weight category.
It's a case of hold on as much as you can. A driver down in the pits with damage is Jesse Payne-Wilkins. That's going to hurt him in the AM category as things continue on. 11 minutes, 11 seconds left. And look at them fight together. This is what happened to Jesse here. This is coming through the Porsche. That's Dan McCauley going around there in the Porsche curves, heading towards Corvette.
Oh, your AM Championship leader then having, again, a very similar mistake to what we saw in the dry conditions. The rear ends, I wonder if we're going to start seeing it now the track is drying because the sway is considerably better than it was, 50 minutes ago? The rear ends of these cars, because they're so tuned for that long Mulsanne straight, the corners put so much lateral G-force through the corners, the rear wings don't have the capacity to hold on.
No, that is very true. And remember, you got to remember the tyre temperature, the brake temperatures as well, going to play a big factor. James Boomey gets the launch needed here along this straight. Aiden Carter is shuffled over to what is the right-hand side of screen, the left-hand side of track. James Boomey gets his launch and knows that the best he can hope for is third. He's a little later on the brakes as well than the Lamborghini and holds his ground and says, that one's mine, I'll take P4. Now Michael Evdoka's under pressure and Matthias Pirhinen in this group, and we still got Watson and Altria trying to cling on, going, wait for me lads, I want in on this battle.
Yeah, they don't want to drop this because, of course, the slipstream will be powerful, especially when they're managing to get past Aiden Carter, who is still holding on. He's got the slipstream from Boomey just in front of him. And this could be an interesting dive because the Lamborghini does handle well, and we have seen it handle well in those heavy braking scenarios. Boomey, of course, does like to try and go side by side very regularly, and we've seen that have dire consequences.
Yeah, sometimes it's for the good, sometimes it is for the bad, and so you take the good and bad and make the best of it, as someone once wrote. So, for this stage, Aiden Carter knows that he wants points, he wants big points here, and you're starting to talk about where is the nearest Pro-Am? The nearest Pro-Am is 11th.
Wow, I think this surely has to be a moment of reflection for Aiden Carter, because he knows, yes, they're all going to be in one train in terms of points, but what a point he's going to pick up here compared to his closest rival, Chris Chatterton.
Yeah, that's huge. Håkon Ida Lindmo now back into the pits again. Blue light then for Matthias Pirhinen as he tries to work and keep himself in play. He's got to work away through Evdoka, who's chasing to Carter, who's chasing to Boomey, who's chasing to Mendonca. So this is a very quick group, and it's 5 cars, 1 spot on a podium.
They all know what's at stake, and the time is ticking down. We're under 10 minutes to go, 8.5 to be absolutely exact. And that was almost to be from Aiden Carter, who took a very narrow line through the left-hander. And I wonder if he's found a little bit of peace and a little bit of patience with an alternate line.
I wonder if he has as well, whether the racing line's going to start working again here through various sections of the track. Maybe this is the time where you can go a little bit more conventional. Because they are clearing more water, you are going to have to start experimenting for places where the track is still going to feel cold, and so maybe you do have to go back to the racing line just to keep the temperatures in check.
Absolutely, and we'll see that start to develop more as the track gets ever drier with the last 7, 8 minutes, probably 9 minutes of this racing. Of course, we'll have plus 1 lap to get to the end when it's all sort of sorted out with the racing time. So it could be interesting on that final lap, or the final 2 or 3 laps, if the dry line really starts to come and pay benefit and pay dividends lap after lap.
It's a case of if it does, and they still know they are going to be on 2 laps of racing to go with the pace that Alexander Davidson is setting out in front. So there are only 2 Mulsanne straights left. There are only 2 more opportunities really to go get this pass constructed. James Boomey knows it. He knows he's got to get every point he can. The best he can do is 3rd today, so he can only hope he can get by the Solpec Precision Racing car of David Mendonca, who, give him some credit today. This is by far and away his best drive of the season.
Absolutely, and one that, regardless of whether it's 3rd or whether it's 4th, he's going to be proud to take home the points that come accompanied with it. But Boomey's got to be smart here. He knows there's 2 laps to go. He knows there's 2 opportunities on the Mulsanne straight to essentially get the move made. Do you make the pass on the first time of asking to try and get the move done? Or do you do it on the second when you know they can't get back at you?
Now 20 instant point says you get a drive-through penalty. Paul Smith's going to have to hit the lane.
That's unfortunate for Paul, especially with only, what, 6.5 to go. It's going to really hamper him with such a long pit lane and with such a long lap as well. He's going to fall through the order, but we saw him not comfortable earlier with the car as he was coming out the pit lane. The grimace on his face, I think, spoke 1,000 words.
Oh, now it gets busy for Pirhinen around here because Evdoka is trying to work a way around the outside of Aiden Carter. Does Pirhinen try and hackle his way through? No, he's going to push Aiden forward. Say, no, you go, Mr. Pro-Am. Fight yourself, fight your battle, fight your corner. And he gets the reprieve then through the first part. Now will there be the same for the second part as they go through? Something else to keep in note, you can't serve your black flag penalty if you get it on the last lap. That will mean that if you take it to the line, you're holding 40 seconds at least worth of penalty.
Yeah, so it's a double decision, isn't it? You've got to either take it right now, lose the place and hope you can drive back to it, or, you know, hope and pray that 40 seconds isn't going to be catastrophic. Carter, though, falling through the order, and I think this was to be expected as the pro drivers start to make their way forward. Carter, though, has clear distance back to the closest pro-am.
Yeah, nothing you can do there. Aiden Carter loses out to Pirhinen and Evdoka. And as that happened, David Mendonca loses the place to James Boomy, who moves up to P3. But David can fight this one back here, can the American, as he goes through all the way. Down low goes Matthias Pirhinen, trying to unlock it. And there's more trading of paint along the straight. Now they'll scrap again. Down onto the brakes, in towards the right-hand corner there of Mulsanne, and Pirhinen gets his pass, but Michael Evdoka will now scrap back for it along the straight. Mendonca doesn't have the leg, but someone who definitely does is Michael Evdoka, and taking the long wide line. Oh, he's in the grass! My goodness me! Michael Evdoka all the way out to the grass!
Both of these drivers pushing this race to the absolute limits. You saw the plume of water that was thrown up when they ran to the outside of the racing circuit. And there's all contact again as they head through the right-hander. Oh, you see even more in towards the sweeping left. Oh, very wide. Very, very wide.
And the lights flashing from Michael Evdoka. He is not happy about that. And he lets it know to Matthias Pirhinen that he felt that was a little bit too aggressive, and that's slow from Adam Watson. They're coming out of the corner, so that'll bring Ross McFarlane into play in a race for ninth.
It was actually a spin from Ross McFarlane. We saw it in the background of shot when we were watching the main two battle. I think the rear end just spun out on him. Yeah, absolutely lost the rear end. Tried to get the car spun around, and I think he was stuck somewhat in no man's land there.
Oh, speaking of that, Aiden Carter finds out the hard way. Through goes Evdoka, through goes Pirhinen, and so they find themselves there. It was a case of I'm going to tap once, tap twice on the straight to the Porsche curves, and Carter just went, no, this isn't my race.
Yeah, very sensible racing, especially with, 1-2 laps to go in the entire hour. It's just a case of making sure that car gets home now. He's got free air behind him by a good 3 seconds, and he doesn't want to maybe get caught up in an incident that could see him maybe not even get the car home.
Michael Evdoka's still flashing the lights. He's still trying to make it known to Matthias Pirhinen, hey, buddy, that wasn't on between us, and we got to make something happen of it. Colin Sansom now down into the pits too. And, you know, you get drivers who use the lights like it's nobody's business. Some people use the lights as breathing. I know one driver once upon a time, a very good friend of mine, Josh Nowak, who decided he wanted to bind his light flash button to his brakes.
Oh my goodness, I have never thought of that because that sounds hilariously fun, but also that is such a, and I can't say this politely on stream, but silly move to do to really distract those in front of you.
It is. Oh, Paul Smith's in the middle of this. He doesn't want to get himself caught up in a place he doesn't belong. He runs a bit wide through the corner. Michael Evdoka, I think, is going to have to cede this one. It's going to be more a chance of Aiden Carter getting through now because Evdoka can't predict where Paul Smith's going to be. So Paul, who has gritted his teeth, I think, and grinded them down over the course of this race with how tough the conditions have been out there today, just about sensibly lets the move go by.
He's staying to the outside line, but you can see the rain and the standing water that he's kicking up in towards the air. I think he's going to allow Carter through as well, because he knows that he's not in this battle and doesn't want to get involved. But it's going to be an interesting one to see if anybody else, any cars that are slightly off the back of the pack, get involved as much as we would have expected some others to.
Well, it's been a day of chances throughout this one with a minute and a half to go in terms of clock time here in this one. It's been a day in which you stand up and say, have I done everything I can? Have I mastered these conditions? Have I been able to find the confidence as this race goes on? And have I been able to say what I can? Look at Michael Evdoka right now. He is a driver who is so upset at the moment with the way that this has been going on. He'd have felt that wasn't ball in terms of the way that pass was, and he's letting Pierhonen know all the way home that he's not happy. And sometimes you get drivers who just feel like that and just need to find a way to vent out frustration. He keeps on flashing the lights and he knows that he's going to be a bit short. David Mendonca's not got the pace here really against James Boomey. He's close, he's within a second here to try and make the throw of it here down at Mulsanne corner, but he's just not available to get the drive he needs off the exit to really open up what he wants. And as we know, being on the final lap of this race, this is a story about those who got away here around this track. This is the story of Alexander Davidson at the front of this field, who works himself on the final lap through Arnage corner and only has himself the Porsche curves, Corvette, Maison Blanche, Ford and the rear quarter mock left in terms of this one. Evdoka again on the light button and using it until he runs out of electricity in the car to flash those lights anymore. Knows he's not going to be close enough. Mendonca in third, very close to James Boomey, thinking of throwing one back over at Arnage corner, isn't going to be able to get the drive off the exit as they go. But it has been a day of brilliance. Patrick Falconer on the last lap hits 20 incident points, but it's this driver you need to focus on, walking himself through past the Alain Prost karting circuit on the right hand side, working his way through Maison Blanche, and now knowing that with the double in the back pocket, he will romp into the championship lead. Davidson at the double through the Ford chicanes. Now the rear quarter mod, they can't do anything but watch as greatness takes the championship lead.
Absolutely stellar drive from Davidson, took the top spot, and I think we're going to see Evdoka here marching to the Stewards like we saw Schumacher do so many years ago. He's going to be absolutely fuming in that cockpit. As we watch on board with Watson, who I think was chasing down Ulterior, and we see them come up towards the line.
Yeah, the last few drivers then in the top 10 make their progress. Matthias Pierhonen here is going to be close as Aiden Carter. What a drive from him. He's going to come to the line and he is going to get the Pro-Am honours, and he's just not going to get Michael Evdoka over the line here. So some great racing. Ben Altria takes your AM category victory in 8th place as he now crosses the line. Daniel McCauley, I think our director here, is so used to Dan McCauley winning races, he went straight to Dan McCauley out there overall. He's driven brilliantly though from 26th up to 12th. He's your biggest mover in the field with the exception of Alexander Davidson and James Boomey.
And let's not forget as well, he's had his fair share of instances, Dan McCauley. He's managed to come back from such adversity. Whether or not that was self-imposed, I'm not going to mention that on the broadcast, but to get himself back up to 12 time and time again, that's got to feel good, no matter even if he had incidents.
Top 15 for Benjamin Gregory after finding troubles throughout this race. Started on pole, so really had to work hard for it. Joe Coffin not a million miles behind that as well, and it's going to be a long old day for those trying to get themselves over the line because of the fact that it's such a long lap. They're going to be about 4 minutes back here today trying to get their clearance as they go towards the finish. So that, I think, is going to be a long old day for the likes of Adam Hedgecock, Paddy Falconer's there, Håkon Ida Lindmo is another. There is Tom Griffiths making his progress. He's had a pretty decent day in Pro-Am, a gain of 5, but, you know, at this point, surviving wet tonight out there on this track, I think any points is good points today.
Absolutely, and especially when we've had such torrential conditions from that practice session, they carried over to the race. The dark and the night sky, especially for the drivers that lost their front lights in the midst of that action, to get the car home in one piece, that is going to mean absolute bucket loads to those drivers.
It certainly will. Confirmation of result then. Alexander Davidson
gets the job done and does so by almost 16 seconds with back-to-back wins against Anders Myhre. James Boomey would work himself up to third and take the fastest lap as well for good measure, with David Mendonca fourth and Matthias Pirhinen in fifth. He will be a little bit dazzled in the mirrors as the 989er Michael Evdoka flashed all the way home to sixth place, as Aiden Carter would win the Pro-Am division in seventh and Ben Altria the Am category division in eighth. Critical points on Dan McCauley. Adam Watson will finish off in ninth, and Ross McFarlane, with a great recovery, would work himself into the top 10. Chris Chatterton had himself a very successful race today in the Nomad car. 11th for him, ahead of Daniel McCauley in 12th, with Jacques Zever and Elliot Roberts 13th and 14th. Benjamin Gregory, who was on pole, just behind the Was Cooking Racing Adventures car, Boosted Motorsports number 113 in 15th, with Joe Coffin in 16th. So then you've got Lee Berridge 17th and Dennis Grabowski 18th. Tom Griffiths and Tommy Vedel then rounding out your top 20. Phil Samways would be 21st. Tough day for him in race number 2 of tonight, with Howard Hassan and Drew Fletcher. Håkon Eidelinmo will be 24th and Adam Hedgecock in 25th. Patrick Falconer will be the last car on the lead lap. He'll also have an added penalty on the end of that with what he's got in 26th, as John Roberts would be a lap down along with Paul Smith and Colin Sansom. Jesse Payne Wilkins would finish off 2 laps down in 30th. And then your retirees, and there's the big one there, Michael Gray, the Pro-Am category leader in the championship, now cedes points away to Aiden Carter. Jack Osborne, Adam Tompkins then would end up at 12 laps down. Arthur Thurtle as well, so a tough day for Altitude Esports by Sim Stickers. Atomic Esports and Andy Archer, the 555 in trouble, along with Louis Hesketh and Eric Muxka, making up issues on the opening lap of the race. But Tom, a very successful race that you have to say, as they have brought themselves all ready to say, look, this is the level that we can stand up and this is what we can do. The issue comes from, okay, this is always going to be a tough track. Let's give them the toughest responsibility they can do. And a lot of the drivers stood up and said, we will count.
Absolutely. It's been a fantastic and a very professional drive from so many of these drivers, especially the ones that faced that early diversity, to be able to come back and continue racing in what can only be described as quite possibly torrential conditions, with the spray coming left, right and centre when you were driving down that Moulin straight. I have to mention, though, it's been a great day to be a Pro-Am driver, with first and third in the championship both not finishing the race.
I think it tells you all you need to know, that this has been a day where the Pro-Ams have had the opportunity to completely reshape the championship. But speaking of reshaping it, when we head to the land of Liège, Bastogne-Liège, the great cycling classic, the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps will be coming up in 7 days' time. And Tom, it is just one long race that they will deal with. It's the second of 2 Enduros on the calendar, and this circuit pretty much does it all.
Yeah, format switches up. What is not to love about the Circuit Spa-Francorchamps heading through the Ardennes Forest? It's absolutely stunning.
You can only catch it with us here on RaceSpotTV, but today has been all about what the best have been able to put on the table. You stand up, you say, how difficult's the battles? Who's going to see their tempers flare underneath the rain? But it is today a day of those who can attack. Ben Altria makes great gains in the championship. He will hunt down that amateur category result against the likes of Dan McCauley. You look at Pro-Am, a day where some don't turn up like William Guthrie, some run into troubles like Eric Muxka and Michael Gray, and it's Aiden Carter who now puts together a great score of points to say, I'm going to be back in championship aspirations. But when you go to Pro and you talk about how it's going to be a case of who puts more notches on the belt in a heavyweight title bout between James Boomey and the likes of Alexander Davidson, this was the first real 10-8 round of the season for the likes of Alexander Davidson. James Boomey, he's definitely not out of it, but he's certainly a little bit woozy after today's action. It's going to be Alexander Davidson with momentum and a championship lead heading to Spa in your World GT Championship.